The day the Donovan family realized they needed me is etched into my memory like a photograph that won't fade. I can still see Vivian's face, the proud matriarch who once told her country club friends I was just a pretty accessory for her son, as she sat across from me in my executive office, her perfectly manicured hands trembling slightly around her untouched glass of water. "Rebecca," she'd said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge, "we need to discuss a business proposition. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." The irony wasn't lost on me. After 5 years of sidelong glances, backhanded compliments, and being introduced as James's wife instead of by my name or accomplishments, suddenly I wasn't just the trophy wife anymore. I was the lifeline they desperately needed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met James Donovan at a charity gala for sustainable development, an ironic setting considering his family's business was luxury real estate that often dismissed environmental concerns. I was there representing my fledgling tech startup, Horizon Innovations, hoping to network with potential investors interested in renewable energy solutions. James stood out immediately, not just because of his tailored suit or classic good looks, but because he was genuinely interested in my pitch about solar efficiency technology when everyone else's eyes had glazed over. He asked intelligent questions, challenged my assumptions, and by the end of the night, we'd scheduled a coffee meeting to discuss potential applications in real estate development. That coffee meeting turned into dinner into weekends, together. And 6 months later, I was head over heels for this man who seemed to value both my mind and my heart. James was different from his family, progressive, forward-thinking, supportive of my ambitions. Or so I thought. "You're making a mistake, James," Richard Donovan's voice boomed across the formal dining room of their Hillcrest Heights mansion. It was the first time James had brought me to the monthly Donovan family dinner, and it was going about as well as a snowball in summer. "Dad, Rebecca's company is developing cutting-edge technology. If you'd just listen—" "I've heard enough," Richard interrupted, swirling his bourbon. "Playing with solar panels and batteries isn't a real business. It's a hobby, a fashionable little cause." Vivian patted her perfectly coiffed silver hair and smiled at me with practiced politeness that never reached her eyes. "Of course, dear. It's admirable when young women have interests before settling down." "Mom," James warned, but Olivia, his sister, jumped in. "Oh, come on, James. We all know why you're with her, and it's not for fascinating conversations about photovoltaic cells." She raised her wine glass in a mock toast. "Though I must say, you do have excellent taste aesthetically." I felt my cheeks flush, but years of pitching to dismissive male investors had taught me to maintain composure. "Actually, Olivia, it's perovskite solar cells. They're a different technology altogether with nearly twice the efficiency potential. But I wouldn't expect you to know that since your job at Daddy's company was—" "What exactly? Managing the Instagram account?" The table fell silent. Thomas, James's brother, nearly choked on his drink before covering it with a cough. "She's got you there, Liv," he muttered, earning a glare from both parents. Later that night, in James's penthouse apartment, I paced the living room, the city lights twinkling below through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Your family thinks I'm just arm candy, James. They didn't ask a single question about me beyond where I got my dress." James sighed, loosening his tie. "They're old-fashioned, Becca. They'll come around." "Will they? Because your father referred to my company as that sunshine hobby, and your mother asked if I had any real work experience, as if my MBA and 3 years building my own company counted for nothing. My parents built Donovan Properties from nothing. They just value traditional business models. Once they see how brilliant you are—" "No," I cut him off. "They need to respect me now, not when I prove myself worthy by their standards." "James, crossed the room, taking my hands in his. I love you, Becca. Not for how you look, though you're beautiful. I love your mind, your determination, your vision. Isn't that what matters? And if they never accept me? If they always see me as the pretty distraction who stole their son from the well-connected society girls they had picked out? James's expression grew serious. Then they'll have to learn to live with disappointment, because I'm not letting you go. I wanted to believe him. I truly did. 3 months later, James proposed. Not with the ostentatious diamond his mother had not so subtly suggested, but with a simple yet elegant ring that incorporated recycled gold, a nod to my environmental values. We planned a small, intimate ceremony at a local botanic garden. The Donovans had other ideas. Absolutely not, Vivian declared during an unwanted wedding planning ambush at their home. A Donovan doesn't get married in a, what did you call it? Casual garden party. We have a reputation to maintain. It's our wedding, I insisted. James and I want something meaningful, not a social showcase. The Westlake Country Club has been the venue for Donovan weddings for generations. Richard chimed in as if I hadn't spoken. We've already spoken to the events coordinator. You did what? James asked, finally showing some backbone. Olivia rolled her eyes from the sofa where she was scrolling through her phone. Please, as if your little solar girl here has the connections or know-how to plan a wedding worthy of our family name. My name is Rebecca, I said firmly. Not solar girl. Of course it is, dear. Vivian patted my hand. And soon it will be Rebecca Donovan. That comes with certain expectations. James and I argued all the way home. He wanted to compromise, keep the botanic garden ceremony but hold the reception at the country club. I wanted to elope. They'll never see me as anything but an accessory, James. A pretty bauble you picked up instead of the debutante they wanted. They didn't even bother learning what my company does. They're trying in their way, he insisted. Dad asked if your company was publicly traded. Only so he could check if I was after your money, I exclaimed. As if I haven't been supporting myself since I was 18. 2 weeks of tense negotiations later, we reached a compromise, though it felt like surrender. Ceremony at the Botanic Garden, reception at the country club. I gained one victory. My company would install solar lighting along the garden paths as a showcase for our technology. At least some good would come from the day. The wedding itself was a blur of contradictions. The intimate, nature-focused ceremony I'd wanted, followed by a lavish reception that screamed Donovan from every crystal glass and floral arrangement. As we made our entrance at the country club, I overheard Vivian explaining to her friends, James has always had an eye for beauty, and she is quite decorative, isn't she? Of course, Horizon, whatever. It's called probably won't last another year, but she'll make such lovely grandbabies. My fingers tightened around James's arm, and he leaned down to whisper, Ignore her. This is our day. But it wasn't just our day. It was the beginning of a battle for respect that would last years. The first 6 months of marriage were a delicate balancing act. James worked at Donovan Properties, being groomed to eventually take over from his father. I poured everything into Horizon Innovations, working 14-hour days to secure our first major contract. When we did see each other, it was wonderful. We were partners, equals, supporting each other's dreams. Then came the Donovan Thanksgiving dinner. So, Rebecca, Richard began as the housekeeper cleared the soup course, James tells me you're still tinkering with that solar business. I placed my napkin carefully on my lap. Horizon secured a $2 million contract last month to outfit the new Westlake Community College campus with our energy systems. How nice, Vivian smiled tightly. A local charity project. It's not charity, Mother, James corrected. Becca's systems will save them nearly 40% on energy costs. Rebecca, I reminded him quietly. Only my close friends called me Becca. Speaking of charity, Vivian continued as if neither of us had spoken, the holiday gala committee needs volunteers. Now that you're a Donovan wife, Rebecca, there are certain social obligations. I'm afraid I don't have time for committee work, I replied. We're in negotiations with 3 more campuses, and I'm leading all the technical presentations. Thomas snorted. They actually let you do the technical stuff? I figured you'd be the pretty face they brought in for the final handshake. James tensed beside me. Becca founded the company, Tom. She has patents in her name. James, I hissed. Stop calling me Becca at this table. Olivia leaned forward, eyes gleaming with malice thinly veiled as concern. Trouble in paradise already? I told you, James. You should have dated her longer before proposing. Beauty fades, but personality is forever. Enough, Richard declared. This is Thanksgiving. Olivia, your brother made his choice. James, if your wife is too busy for family obligations, so be it. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I didn't say I was too busy for family, I clarified. I said I couldn't join the gala committee. Same thing, dear. Vivian waved dismissively. The gala is a Donovan family tradition, but I understand if you find it intimidating. The subtle dig hung in the air. Too unsophisticated, too new money, too much the outsider to represent the Donovan name. That night, in our condo, I confronted James. You need to stand up to them more forcefully. I defended you at dinner, he protested. By calling me Becca after I've asked you repeatedly not to do that around your family? By explaining my accomplishments for me as if I couldn't speak for myself. That's not fair. James ran his hands through his hair. I'm trying to bridge 2 worlds here, and I'm tired of being treated like a showpiece who doesn't belong in either. The argument ended like many others, with a temporary truce and promises to do better. But the pattern was set. At every family gathering, every country club, event, every Donovan holiday tradition, I was introduced as James's wife, or our James's bride, as if I had no identity beyond my relationship to their son. Meanwhile, Horizon Innovations continued to grow. I hired 10 more engineers, expanded our product line, and moved to larger offices downtown. James was genuinely proud, bragging about my accomplishments to his friends, but his family remained dismissive. Such an unusual hobby for a Donovan wife, Vivian commented at one dinner party, loud enough for her friends to hear. Most of our daughters-in-law focus on family charities or interior design. It's not a hobby, Mrs. Donovan, I corrected for what felt like the 100th time. It's a multi-million-dollar company that employs over 30 people. How modern, she replied with a thin smile. Though one wonders when you'll find time for children with such distractions. The final straw came at the Donovans' annual Christmas party. I was deep in conversation with a potential investor when Olivia sauntered over, champagne in hand. Don't bore Mr. Winston with all that technical jargon, Rebecca, she interrupted. He's here to enjoy himself, not sit through another sales pitch. Actually, Mr. Winston replied, I find Mrs. Donovan's energy storage solutions fascinating. My firm has been looking to diversify into green technology. Mrs. Donovan? Olivia laughed, gesturing across the room where Vivian stood holding court. That's my mother. This is just Rebecca. James always did have a weakness for pretty faces. I excused myself before I could say something unforgivable. Finding James by the bar, I pulled him aside. I'm leaving, I told him, keeping my voice low. Your sister just undermined a potential $1 million investment by treating me like your brainless arm candy. Again. You're overreacting, James sighed. Olivia was just being Olivia. And you're just being a coward, I snapped instantly, regretting my words but too hurt to take them back. James's face hardened. That's not fair. I've supported you every step of the way. Support isn't just saying nice things when we're alone, James. It's standing up for me when your family treats me like I'm nothing but a trophy wife. They don't. Your mother introduced me to the mayor's wife as James's bride who plays with solar panels. Your father asked if I was still pretending to be a businesswoman. And not once did you correct them. They're my family, Rebecca. So am I hissed, or at least I thought I was. The drive home was silent. Back at our condo, the argument exploded in full force. I cannot keep pretending that the way they treat me is okay. I paced our living room. I'm successful, James. My company is changing the world. Why can't they see that? They're from a different generation, James defended. My grandfather built this company during the Depression. They value security, tradition. They value appearances, I corrected. And apparently I don't fit their image of what a Donovan wife should be. What do you want me to do? James threw up his hands. Cut them off? That's my family. And I'm asking you to prioritize the family we're building together, to show them there are consequences for disrespecting your wife. They're not disrespecting you. They are, and the fact that you can't even see it. I trailed off, suddenly exhausted. I can't do this anymore, James. I can't keep fighting this battle alone. James's expression shifted from frustration to alarm. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to make a choice. Either we present a united front against their treatment of me or what? His voice was barely a whisper. Or we need to rethink this marriage. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, heavy and irreversible. James stared at me, conflict written across his face. I can't choose between you and my family, Rebecca. Don't ask me to. But I had asked, and his non-answer was answer enough. 2 days later, I moved into a hotel. A week after that, I signed a lease on a small apartment near my office. James and I agreed to a trial separation while we figured things out. In reality, there was only one thing to figure out: whether he would ever value our marriage enough to stand up to his family. The answer came 3 weeks later when divorce papers arrived by courier, initiated by James, not me. The attached note was brief. I'm sorry, but I can't turn my back on my family legacy. At the bottom, almost as an afterthought, you'll do amazing things, Becca. You don't need the Donovan name to succeed. He was right about one thing. I didn't need their name. And I would do amazing things, starting with building my company into something that would make the mighty Donovans look small by comparison. 3 years passed in a flurry of spreadsheets, investor meetings, and late nights at my downtown office. The initial sting of the divorce had faded, replaced by a calm determination that fueled 18-hour workdays and relentless innovation. My small apartment became little more than a place to shower and occasionally sleep, while Horizon Innovations grew from a promising startup into a force to be reckoned with in the renewable energy sector. The morning I signed the lease on the Harbor View Tower for our new headquarters, I stood alone by the wall-to-wall windows, gazing at the skyline I was slowly reshaping. The Donovan Properties building was visible in the distance, a gleaming monument to old money and traditional power. Our new offices would be smaller, but the view was better. There was a certain poetry in that. Should I order champagne? Maya asked, joining me at the window. In the aftermath of my divorce, she'd left her corporate job to become my chief operations officer, bringing structure to my creative chaos. Maybe when we hit $50 million, I replied, not taking my eyes off the horizon. Maya nudged my shoulder. Rebecca Mitchell, you just secured the largest contract in company history, signed a lease on prime downtown real estate, and made Forbes' 40 Under 40 list. If that doesn't deserve champagne, what does? I finally turned to her, managing a small smile. Fine, but make it the good stuff. Already had Daniel put a bottle on ice, she grinned, referring to our brilliant head engineer who had followed me from my first tiny office space. He's rallying the troops in the conference room. As we walked through the current offices, soon to be our old offices, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. 30 employees had become 120. One patent had multiplied into 17. The struggling startup was now Horizon Innovations, Inc., a rising star in sustainable technology with contracts spanning 3 states. And somewhere along the way, Rebecca Donovan had reverted to Rebecca Mitchell. Wiser, harder, more focused than ever. The company celebration was brief but joyful. I'd learned to mark milestones, to allow moments of pride before pushing forward to the next goal. As glasses clinked and employees chatted excitedly about the new space, Maya pulled me aside. "There's something you should see," she said, handing me her tablet. The screen displayed a business news article dated that morning. Donovan Properties announces restructuring amid market pressures. I skimmed the content, catching phrases like shifting away from luxury developments and adapting to changing market demands. "Looks like your ex-in-laws are having a rough quarter," Maya observed neutrally. I handed the tablet back, my expression carefully blank. "The luxury real estate market always fluctuates. They'll be fine." "You don't care even a little bit?" she pressed. "I've spent 3 years building something that matters, Maya. I don't have time to worry about whether the Donovans can still afford their country club membership." She studied my face, clearly, unconvinced. "If you say so." That night, alone in my apartment, I allowed myself the indulgence of looking up more information. The restructuring wasn't just a quarterly hiccup. Donovan Properties had lost 3 major developments to competitors, with more innovative, sustainable approaches. Investors were pulling back, questioning whether the old guard company could adapt to changing consumer preferences for eco-friendly luxury. I closed my laptop, refusing to feel the satisfaction tugging at the corners of my mind. Success was my focus, not revenge. Yet as I drifted to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder if Vivian Donovan still referred to renewable energy as a fashionable little cause. The move to Harborview Tower marked a new chapter for Horizon. With expanded facilities came expanded ambitions. We weren't just selling individual solar solutions anymore. We were designing integrated systems for entire communities. My vision of self-sustaining neighborhoods powered by renewable energy was becoming reality, one contract at a time. 6 months after the move, I found myself speaking at a major industry conference in Chicago. As I concluded my keynote on next-generation storage solutions, the applause was gratifying but expected. What I didn't expect was seeing Thomas Donovan, waiting by the exit as attendees filed out. My stomach clenched, but my expression remained professional as he approached. "Impressive presentation," he said, hands in the pockets of his perfectly tailored suit. He looked older than I remembered, lines of stress etched around his eyes. "Thank you," I replied simply, gathering my materials. I wasn't aware Donovan Properties had an interest in renewable energy. "We're exploring new directions." His smile looked forced. "You've built quite a company, Rebecca." "I have." An awkward silence stretched between us. 3 years ago, this man had sat silently while his family dismantled my confidence, piece by piece. Now he stood before me like we were casual business acquaintances. "How is everyone?" I finally asked, more out of ingrained politeness than genuine interest. "Good, good." Thomas shifted his weight. "Dad's stepping back a bit. James is taking on more leadership, though the transition's been..." He hesitated. "Challenging." "Oh, I'm sure he's up to the task." My tone was neutral, betraying nothing of the complex emotions stirring beneath. "Actually," Thomas lowered his voice, "that's partly why I wanted to catch you. We're considering some sustainable development initiatives, and your expertise would be valuable." I raised an eyebrow. You want to hire Horizon as consultants? More like a potential partnership. Green luxury living is the future, and you're clearly leading in that space. The irony was almost too perfect. After years of dismissing my work, the Donovans wanted to leverage it. "Have your people call my people," I said, using the dismissive phrase Vivian had once used on me. "My assistant can schedule a preliminary meeting." Thomas seemed to catch the subtle jab, his expression tightening. This could be beneficial for both our companies. "Perhaps." I checked my watch pointedly. "If you'll excuse me, I have another meeting." As I walked away, I felt his eyes on my back. Only when I reached the safety of my hotel room did I allow myself to process the encounter. The Donovans needed me. Or at least, they needed what I'd built. For a fleeting moment, I considered the satisfaction of rejecting them outright, of watching their company struggle while mine soared. But that wasn't the businesswoman I'd become. If a partnership made financial sense, I'd consider it. And if it didn't, I'd decline with the professional courtesy they'd never shown me. I called Maya that evening. Thomas Donovan approached me at the conference. What did he want? Her voice instantly sharpened. Apparently, Donovan Properties is interested in sustainable development partnerships. You're kidding. Maya's disbelief echoed my own. After all their talk about how environmental concerns were just trendy distractions, the market's changing. They're adapting, or trying to. What did you tell him? To go through proper channels. I want this documented, everything by the book. And if the numbers work? She pressed. I gazed out at the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling in the darkness. Then we'll consider it, just like any other potential partnership. Just like any other partnership, Maya repeated slowly. Rebecca, these people treated you like you were nothing. And now they know I'm something, I replied simply. That's enough. But was it? The question lingered as weeks passed with no follow-up from Donovan Properties. I told myself I was relieved. The complications of working with my former in-laws would have been considerable. Yet I couldn't deny feeling a twinge of disappointment that they hadn't even tried to pursue the conversation. Life moved forward. Horizon secured 2 more major contracts, launched a new residential battery system, and expanded into the Southwest market. I dated occasionally. Nothing serious, just enough to remind myself I was more than my company. The board began discussions about going public, a prospect that both excited and terrified me. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Ms. Mitchell, there's a James Donovan here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. The pen I'd been holding clattered to the desktop. 4 years of carefully constructed barriers threatened to crumble at the mere mention of his name. Tell him I'm in meetings all day, I replied, proud of how steady my voice sounded. He says it's urgent, something about a proposal that can't wait. I closed my eyes, centering myself. Give me 5 minutes, then send him in. Those 5 minutes were spent staring out the window at the rain-slicked city below, pulling my professional armor tight around me. When the door finally opened, I was seated behind my desk, posture perfect, expression neutral. James looked both familiar and foreign, the same warm eyes and strong jaw, but with new lines of responsibility etched into his features. He'd lost weight, and the confident stride I remembered had been replaced by something more measured. Rebecca, he began, standing awkwardly just inside the doorway. Thank you for seeing me. What can I do for Donovan Properties today? I kept my tone businesslike, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. He sat, clearly noting the deliberate distance I'd established. You look well, successful. I am both, I confirmed. But I doubt you came here to comment on my appearance. He winced slightly. Direct as ever. I've missed that. James, I sighed. Why are you here? Thomas mentioned something about a partnership at that conference months ago. but we never heard anything further. James ran a hand through his hair. A nervous habit I remembered well. That wasn't my decision. Dad wanted to explore other options first. And now? Now we're ready to discuss a formal proposal. He placed a sleek folder on my desk. Donovan Green Estates. Luxury living with zero carbon footprint. I didn't touch the folder. And you need Horizon's technology to make that happen. We need your expertise, your vision, he corrected. Nobody understands sustainable systems like you do. There are other companies in this space, I pointed out. None with your track record. James leaned forward. This could be revolutionary, Rebecca. The first truly sustainable luxury community in the region. Why should I partner with Donovan Properties? Your father made his opinion of my hobby very clear. James had the grace to look ashamed. Things have changed. The company has changed. Has it? I raised an eyebrow. Or are you just following market trends because your traditional model is failing? His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I finally pulled the folder toward me, opening it to scan the contents. The proposal was actually impressive. Ambitious scope, decent preliminary designs, substantial investment. I'll have my team review this and get back to you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? James frowned. We were hoping for a faster response. The market is my company, my timeline. I cut him off coolly. 2 weeks is expedited by our standards. Most potential partners wait a month for preliminary review. He stood, clearly frustrated but trying not to show it. Of course. Thank you for your consideration. At the door, he paused, turning back with an expression I couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, I was wrong, Rebecca. About everything. You've built something extraordinary here. The admission caught me off guard. For a dangerous moment, I felt the wall around my heart crack. 2 weeks, I repeated, keeping my voice steady. My assistant will show you out. After he left, I sat motionless, staring at the Donovan proposal without really seeing it. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had belittled my ambitions now needed those same ambitions to save their floundering business. By all rights, I should be savoring this moment of vindication. Instead, I felt hollow. The satisfaction I'd imagined feeling in this scenario was nowhere to be found. Maya found me still at my desk hours later, the proposal untouched since my initial scan. So, she said without preamble, your ex-husband waltzed in here after 4 years to ask for your help saving the family business. That's some cosmic karma. I managed a wry smile. Something like that. Want me to shred the proposal? I'll film it for posterity. No, I shook my head. Have the team review it properly. If it makes business sense, we'll consider it. Maya perched on the edge of my desk, studying me with concern. And if it's a borderline case? Then we'll negotiate better terms, I replied pragmatically. This is business, Maya, not personal. Bull, she said bluntly. It's both and you know it. She was right, of course. The prospect of working with the Donovans again, of proving my worth in the most tangible way possible, carried emotional weight no other partnership could match. But I'd learned to separate feelings from finances, to make decisions based on data rather than desire. Have the team treat it like any other proposal, I insisted. No special treatment either way. Fine, Maya conceded. But for the record, I'm prepared to hate every minute of working with these people. Noted, I smiled. Now let's get back to the Madison contract. We have actual paying clients to focus on. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of normal business operations. If I checked on the progress of the Donovan review more frequently than usual, nobody commented on it. The preliminary assessment was promising, Their location and design philosophy paired well with our technology, and the profit projections were solid. Bottom line, Daniel explained during our executive review, it's a good fit technically. Their architectural plans actually incorporate our systems elegantly, and the scale would let us showcase our integrated community approach. The financials work too, added our CFO. They're offering fair compensation, and the publicity would be valuable as we consider the IPO. Maya remained skeptical. Sure, it looks good on paper, but can we trust them? What if this is just them using our reputation to boost their struggling brand, then discarding us once they're stable again? It was a valid concern. We'd need ironclad contracts, I acknowledged. Proprietary protections, phased implementation with performance benchmarks, payment schedules favoring our interests. So we're doing this? Maya didn't bother hiding her disapproval. I tapped my pen against the conference table, weighing the decision. We're proposing our terms. If they accept them, yes, we move forward. Professional, protected, and profitable. The call to James was brief and businesslike. We would consider a partnership under specific conditions. Detailed. In our counterproposal, the ball was in their court. 3 days later, my assistant announced another unscheduled visitor, Vivian Donovan. My first instinct was to refuse the meeting. Vivian had been the most dismissive of all the Donovans, her condescension cutting deeper than Richard's blunt disapproval. But curiosity won out. Send her in, I instructed, standing to greet her from behind my desk. Vivian entered like she owned the room, chin high, shoulders back, designer handbag clutched in manicured fingers. But something was different. The perfectly coiffed silver hair showed missed appointments. The designer outfit was from last season. Most tellingly, the imperious confidence that had once radiated from her was dimmed, replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like desperation. Rebecca, she began, her voice almost warm. Thank you for seeing me. Mrs. Donovan, I nodded, not offering her a seat. This is unexpected. She glanced around my office, taking in the awards displayed on the walls, the view of the city, the tasteful but expensive furnishings. I could practically see her mental calculations adjusting. You've done well for yourself, she finally said. Yes, I have. I remained standing, unwilling to cede even the small advantage of height. What can I do for you today? I wanted to discuss your counter-proposal. She pronounced the word carefully, as if it were foreign to her vocabulary. That's between our legal teams now. I'm not sure what personal input I can offer. The terms are quite harsh, she said, a hint of the old Vivian showing through. I raised an eyebrow. They're standard for a partnership of this nature. Protection of intellectual property, performance guarantees, payment schedules. Nothing unusual. The equity stake is excessive. 10% is actually quite reasonable given the value we bring to the project. I kept my tone measured. Your company approached us, Mrs. Donovan, not the other way around. She clutched her handbag tighter. The Donovan name has stood for excellence for over 50 years. Surely that counts for something. Names don't build sustainable communities, I replied. Technology, expertise, and execution do. That's what Horizon brings to the table. Vivian's facade cracked slightly. We need this partnership, Rebecca. Need is a strong word. Nevertheless, it's accurate. She sighed, seeming to deflate slightly. The market has shifted. Our traditional developments aren't selling. Investors want sustainability, energy efficiency, all the things you've been championing while you dismiss them as trendy distractions, I supplied. She had the grace to look uncomfortable. We may have been short-sighted. You were wrong, I corrected gently but firmly. About the market, about me, about what constitutes a real business. Vivian stared at me for a long moment, calculation and something like respect warring in her expression. "Yes," she finally admitted. "We were wrong." The admission hung in the air between us, charged with 4 years of history. "Our terms stand," I said after a moment. "They're fair, they protect both parties, and they acknowledge the value each brings to the partnership. I don't make business decisions based on personal history, positive or negative." "James said you would say that." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "He admires you, you know. Even now." I kept my expression neutral. "My personal relationship with James ended 4 years ago. This is strictly business." "Of course." Vivian moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I may have misjudged you, Rebecca. You're not just decorative after all." "No," I agreed. "I never was." After she left, I sank into my chair, emotions churning. Beneath my carefully maintained composure, the Vivian Donovan who had once made me feel small and insignificant had just practically begged for my help. The company that had dismissed my work as a hobby now needed my innovation to survive. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the closing of a chapter. Necessary, but somehow melancholy. Maya found me still contemplating this when she brought in the afternoon coffee. "Vivian Donovan," she said incredulously, "in your office." Rumor is she actually used the phrase, "We were wrong." Please tell me that's true. "It's true," I confirmed, accepting the coffee gratefully. And nothing. Our terms stand. If they accept them, we proceed. If not, we move on to the next opportunity. Maya studied me carefully. "You're not even a little bit smug, right? Now, the woman who called your multi-million-dollar company a hobby just admitted she was wrong." I shrugged. "What would smugness accomplish? They need us. We can benefit from the partnership. Business moves forward." "Look at you," Maya shook her head. "All grown up and professional. 4 years ago, you would have savored this moment." 4 years ago, I was still defining myself in opposition to them, I replied, surprising myself with the insight. Now I know who I am regardless of what they think. That evening, as I drove home through the gentle spring rain, I found myself taking a detour past the old Donovan offices. The building looked the same, imposing, traditional, a monument to old money and established power. But now I could see the subtle signs of struggle. Fewer lights on after hours. For lease signs in street-level windows, the logo looking slightly dated compared to newer developments around it. I felt no joy in their difficulties, only a quiet acknowledgement that time moves forward, markets evolve, and those who fail to adapt fall behind. The Donovans had refused to see the future I was building. Now they were scrambling to catch up. My phone buzzed with a message from my lawyer. "Donovan legal team requesting meeting tomorrow to finalize terms. They're accepting our proposal with minor adjustments." So it was happening. Horizon Innovations and Donovan Properties would become partners, creating the very future the Donovans had once mocked me for envisioning. As I pulled away from the curb, rain streaking the windows of my car, I realized something profound. I wasn't helping the Donovans despite our history. I was helping them because I had moved beyond it. The woman they had dismissed as a trophy wife was now the visionary they needed to save their legacy. Life, it seemed, had come full circle. But this time, I was the one driving. The first joint project meeting between Horizon Innovations and Donovan Properties was held in our conference room, a deliberate choice that set the tone for the partnership. I arrived early, reviewing the presentation materials with Daniel and our design team, while Maya arranged the seating chart with strategic precision. Horizon executives on one side, Donovan's on the other, with me at the head of the table. "You're enjoying this a little too much," I murmured as she placed the last name card. "I'm just making sure everyone knows their place," she replied with a smirk. "Specifically, that your place is at the head of the table." The Donovan contingent arrived, precisely on time, led by Richard. Despite pushing 70, he still commanded attention with his imposing frame and silver hair. Vivian entered next, followed by James, Thomas, and their chief architect. Conspicuously absent was Olivia, which wasn't surprising. The family's social media director would have little role in a technical development project. "Welcome to Horizon Innovations," I greeted them professionally, extending my hand to Richard. His grip was firm but no longer intimidating, just the handshake of another business partner. "Impressive operation you've built here," he commented, glancing around at our state-of-the-art conference room with its panoramic city views. "Thank you. Shall we begin?" The meeting started with presentations from both sides, their architectural concepts, our technological solutions, and how the two would mesh into a cohesive development. Throughout the technical discussions, I maintained my composure, speaking with authority about energy systems and sustainability metrics. This was my domain now, and everyone in the room knew it. "The integration of your battery storage system with our design aesthetic is the challenge," their architect explained, pointing to renderings on the screen. "Donovan properties are known for their classical elegance. We need the technology to be invisible." "Invisible technology is outdated thinking," I countered, rising to advance the slide deck. "Today's luxury buyer wants to see the sustainability features. They want to interact with their home, understand its systems, showcase their environmental commitment." "Our clients prefer subtlety," Richard interjected. "Your former clients preferred subtlety," I corrected gently. "According to your own market research." I nodded to the documents before us. "The demographic you're targeting now considers visible sustainability a status symbol." A subtle shift occurred in the room as the words landed. The Donovans weren't just accepting our technology. They were being asked to embrace a fundamental change in their design philosophy. James leaned forward, surprising me by supporting my position. "Rebecca's right. The focus groups were clear. They want to see the solar arrays. They want display panels showing energy production. They want to feel like they're part of the solution." Richard's jaw tightened, but he nodded reluctantly. "If that's what the market demands." "It is," I confirmed, "and Horizon can deliver it in ways that enhance rather than detract from the Donovan aesthetic." "Daniel?" My chief engineer took over, presenting mock-ups of integrated systems that maintained the luxury feel while showcasing the sustainable elements. The tension eased as technical details took center stage, allowing everyone to retreat to the comfort of professional discussion. 2 hours later, as the meeting concluded, I felt cautiously optimistic about the partnership. The Donovans were accepting our expertise, however reluctantly, and the project had genuine potential to reshape both companies' futures. "We should celebrate this partnership properly," Vivian suggested as people gathered their materials. "A dinner, perhaps, to signal to the market that this collaboration is built on mutual respect." My instinct was to refuse. I had no desire to socialize with the Donovans beyond what business required. But Maya caught my eye across the table, her expression clear. This was an opportunity to publicly cement my position of strength. "Dinner would be appropriate," I agreed. "The waterfront grill, perhaps? Their private dining room would accommodate our full executive teams." "Perfect," Vivian smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Friday evening, 7 o'clock? My assistant will coordinate the details." I turned to the broader group. "Thank you all for your participation today. I believe this partnership has significant potential for both our companies." As the Donovans filed out, James lingered behind. I busied myself collecting my notes, avoiding eye contact until we were the only two left in the room. "You were impressive today," he said quietly. "I was just doing my job." "I know. That's what makes it impressive." He hesitated. "This partnership means a lot to my family, Rebecca. More than they'll admit." I finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. This isn't about your family, James. It's about creating something innovative that serves the market and advances sustainable living. If we all stay focused on that goal, the partnership will succeed. Always the visionary. He smiled faintly. I missed that. Don't, I said sharply. We're business partners. Now, nothing more. He nodded, accepting the boundary. Of course. I'll see you Friday then. After he left, Maya returned, eyebrows raised questioningly. He was just expressing appreciation for the partnership, I explained, gathering my materials with more force than necessary. Uh-huh, she said skeptically. And you agreed to the family dinner party because… It's not a family dinner, it's a business function, and it allows us to control the public narrative around this partnership. I straightened, smoothing my blazer. Besides, I'm curious to see how they behave when they need something from me. Maya grinned. That's more like it. For a minute there, I thought you'd gone completely zen on me. Professional, not zen, I corrected. There's a difference. But as the week progressed toward Friday's dinner, maintaining that professional, distance became increasingly difficult. Memories I'd thought safely buried resurfaced at unexpected moments. James's laugh during our early days, the way his hand would find mine under the table at those terrible family dinners, the hurt in his eyes when I'd moved out. You're distracted, Daniel observed during our Thursday project meeting. Just considering the integration challenges, I lied, refocusing on the schematics before us. The truth was more complicated. I was wondering how to navigate an evening with the family that had nearly broken me, without revealing that any power still existed in those old wounds. I was trying to prepare appropriate responses to inevitable comments about my appearance, my business, my life choices. Most troublingly, I was wondering how it would feel to sit across from James for an entire evening, pretending we were nothing more than business associates. By Friday afternoon, I'd changed my outfit 3 times before settling on a deep blue sheath dress that struck the right balance between professional and elegant. My hair was swept into a sleek updo, makeup flawless but subtle. The woman in my mirror looked confident, successful, untouchable. Perfect armor, Maya approved when I met her in the lobby to share a car to the restaurant. She'd opted for a sharp black pantsuit with a statement necklace, her own version of battle dress. It's just dinner, I reminded her, though the butterflies in my stomach suggested otherwise. It's a power play, she corrected, and you're holding all the cards. Remember that. The waterfront grill occupied the top floor of a renovated warehouse, offering panoramic views of the harbor and city skyline. I'd chosen it deliberately for both its impressive setting and its neutral territory, neither a Donovan haunt nor one of my regular spots. We arrived precisely on time to find the Donovans already seated in the private dining room. Richard at one end of the table with Vivian to his right, Thomas to his left, and Olivia beside Thomas. James sat opposite his mother, leaving spaces clearly intended for Maya and me. Rebecca? How lovely! Vivian rose, air kissing near my cheek. And Maya, isn't it? So good of you to join us. I wouldn't miss it, Maya replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I took the seat beside James, leaving Maya to buffer me from Olivia. The strategic positioning wasn't lost on anyone at the table. I took the liberty of ordering champagne, Richard announced as a waiter appeared with an ice bucket. To new beginnings. The cork popped, glasses were filled, and Richard raised his in a toast. To a partnership that combines Donovan tradition with Horizon innovation. To success on all fronts, I added, clinking my glass against his. The first course arrived, delicate seared scallops with a citrus reduction, and conversation initially stayed on safe topics. The restaurant's renowned chef, the recent weather, neutral business news. But as the main course was served, Olivia leaned forward, her gaze fixed on me. So, Rebecca, she began, her tone deceptively light. Do you ever miss being a Donovan? The connections must have been useful in building your little company. Maya stiffened beside me, but I kept my expression. Pleasant. Horizon's success is based on innovation and execution, not connections. But how is your Instagram work going, Olivia? Still managing the family accounts? Her smile tightened. Actually, I've moved into investor relations. Someone needs to reassure our financial partners about this new direction. A challenging role, I acknowledged, especially when the market is shifting so dramatically. Speaking of markets, Thomas interjected, clearly trying to diffuse the tension. The early response to our partnership announcement has been overwhelmingly positive. Donovan's stock is up 12%. Horizon's is up 17%, Maya added with a sweet smile. Richard cleared his throat. The important thing is that both companies benefit. This collaboration brings together the best of both worlds, Donovan's established luxury reputation and Horizon's cutting-edge technology. Though some might say we're being forced into this new direction, Olivia muttered just loudly enough to be heard. Nobody forced anything, James said sharply. The market evolved and we failed to adapt quickly enough. Rebecca saw where things were heading years ago. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table at this acknowledgement of our shared history. Vivian, ever the social strategist, rushed to fill it. Rebecca, I've been meaning to ask. Your energy monitoring displays are so elegant. Who's your designer? Perhaps we could incorporate similar aesthetics into the development's common areas. The conversation shifted to safer ground, design elements, technical specifications, marketing strategies. I participated fully, but maintained a careful emotional distance, treating each question and comment as I would in any business dinner. As dessert was served, Richard leaned back, swirling his brandy. I've been thinking about the project's name. Donovan Green Estates doesn't quite capture the collaboration. It doesn't, I agreed. It suggests Horizon is merely a vendor rather than a true partner. What would you propose? He asked, his tone genuinely curious. I considered for a moment. Horizon Haven. It acknowledges both companies while emphasizing the forward-looking, sustainable nature of the development. Olivia scoffed. Dad, we can't possibly abandon the Donovan name. It's been our calling card for decades. The Donovan name would still be prominent in all marketing materials, I explained patiently, but the development itself needs an identity that speaks to its unique value proposition. Richard studied me thoughtfully. 4 years ago I would have dismissed the idea outright. But you've proven your business acumen, Rebecca. Horizon Haven has a certain appeal. Richard, surely you can't be serious, Vivian protested. The Donovan name carries tremendous weight in the luxury market. It also carries associations with traditional, energy-intensive development, James pointed out. This project is about breaking that mold, showing we can evolve. Thomas nodded slowly. Marketing research indicates buyers under 45 respond more positively to names emphasizing sustainability than to established luxury brands. So we just throw away 50 years of brand equity? Olivia's voice rose slightly. We leverage it differently, I suggested. Horizon Haven, a Donovan Horizon collaboration. It honors the history while emphasizing the innovation. Richard set down his glass decisively. I like it. Let's pursue that direction. The look Vivian shot me combined disbelief and grudging respect. In one dinner conversation, I'd managed to reshape their flagship project's identity, something that would have been unthinkable during my time as James's wife. As the evening wound down, conversation fragmented into smaller discussions. I found myself momentarily alone with James as others gathered their belongings. I meant what I said earlier, he said quietly. You saw where the market was heading. Long before any of us, if we'd listened to you years ago. You didn't, I replied simply. But now you are. That's progress. Is it strange, working with us after everything? I considered the question seriously. It's not strange. It's ironic, perhaps. But business transcends personal history. Does it? His gaze was searching, making me uncomfortably aware of our shared past. Sometimes I wonder if anything truly transcends personal history. Before I could respond, Maya appeared at my elbow. Ready when you are, Rebecca. Early meeting tomorrow. The moment broken, I nodded gratefully. Yes, we should go. Thank you. All for a productive evening. Goodbyes were exchanged with professional courtesy. As Maya and I stepped into the elevator, I exhaled slowly, releasing tension I hadn't realized I was holding. Well, Maya said once the doors closed, that was educational. How so? I've never actually watched someone completely reverse the power dynamic in a family simply by suggesting a name change. She grinned. Richard Donovan defending your idea against his wife and daughter? Priceless. I smiled faintly. It was a good business suggestion, that's all. Bull, Maya said bluntly as we exited into the cool night air. It was you claiming space they never would have given you before, and we both know it. She was right, though I was reluctant to admit it. The dinner had been more than a business function. It had been a recalibration of relationships, a subtle but definitive statement that the balance of power had shifted. The next morning, an email from Richard confirmed the project would indeed be named Horizon Haven, with the tagline, A Donovan Horizon Collaboration. The triumph I felt was thoroughly professional, I told myself. Nothing personal about it at all. The partnership progressed rapidly over the following weeks. Architects and engineers from both companies worked side by side, combining Donovan's luxury aesthetics with Horizon's sustainable technology. I insisted on complete transparency, all meetings documented, all decisions recorded, all communications archived. There would be no misunderstandings, no opportunities for the Donovans to claim credit for Horizon innovations. 6 weeks after the partnership began, ground was broken on the Horizon Haven development. The ceremony was meticulously planned. Equal representation from both companies, carefully crafted speeches, strategic photo opportunities. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Richard for the ceremonial turning of dirt, both of us smiling for cameras that would distribute the images to business and real estate publications nationwide. Quite a moment, Richard commented as we moved away from the photographers. First Donovan development not to bear our name prominently, but potentially the most significant for your company's future, I reminded him. He nodded slowly. No, when James first brought you home, I thought you were just another pretty face he'd fallen for. Clearly, I misjudged you. Clearly, I agreed, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. Would it help if I said I was wrong? His directness surprised me. Would you mean it? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? Richard actually chuckled. Still direct as ever? Yes, I'd mean it. You've built something remarkable. With Horizon. Something I should have recognized the potential for years ago. Before I could respond, we were swept into different conversations. The moment of unexpected candor lost in the bustle of the event. But his words lingered, prompting a question I'd been avoiding. If the Donovans finally recognized my worth, did it actually matter to me anymore? The groundbreaking celebration continued at a nearby hotel ballroom, where investors, media, and local officials mingled over champagne and canapes. I circulated professionally, discussing technical specifications with some groups, broader sustainability, vision with others. This was what success looked like. Not vindication from the Donovans, but recognition from the industry as a whole. You're the talk of the event, Maya observed, joining me near the windows. The visionary behind Horizon. Haven, I've heard your name mentioned with actual reverence. Enjoying my moment of glory? I smiled. Absolutely. Especially watching Vivian try to horn in on interviews only to be sidelined for more quotes from you. I glanced across the room where Vivian was indeed hovering near a reporter who was taking notes from James instead. That's not necessary. Maya. No, but it's satisfying, she admitted unapologetically. After how they treated you. That was 4 years ago, I reminded her. This is now. Fine, be the bigger person. Maya sighed dramatically. Though you should know, Olivia's been making comments to investors about how this partnership was James's idea all along. My calm slipped slightly. Has she? Don't worry, I've been subtly correcting the record, Maya assured me. Complete. With documentation of Thomas approaching you at that conference. Thank you, I said sincerely. History gets written by the most consistent narrator. Exactly. And we're not letting them rewrite this particular story. As the evening progressed, I found myself in conversation with a prominent architectural magazine editor who was particularly interested in the project's origin. It's fascinating, she commented. The merging of old luxury with new sustainability. Whose brainchild was this collaboration? Before I could answer, Vivian appeared at my elbow. Our companies have complementary strengths, she said smoothly. Richard and I have always valued innovation. The editor looked between us clearly, sensing a story. Mrs. Donovan, I understand Rebecca was once married to your son? That must add an interesting dynamic to the partnership. Vivian's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Ancient history. We all recognize that business transcends personal matters. Though some personal insight helped shape the project, I added pleasantly. Having seen Donovan properties from the inside gave me a unique perspective on how to integrate our technologies with their aesthetic. The editor's eyes lit with interest. So you brought your experience as both an insider and outsider to the table? Fascinating angle. Rebecca has certainly brought a fresh perspective, Vivian acknowledged, her tone carefully measured, though the Donovan commitment to excellence remains the foundation of the project. Excellence in traditional luxury, I clarified, while Horizon contributes excellence in sustainable innovation. It's truly a marriage of complementary strengths. The deliberate word choice, marriage, hung in the air between us. Vivian's smile remained fixed, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Indeed, she said after a moment. Now, if you'll excuse me, I see the mayor has arrived. As she moved away, the editor leaned closer. I sense there's more to that story than either of you is telling. I smiled diplomatically. Every successful partnership has its complexities. What matters is the result, in this case, a development that will redefine luxury living for the sustainable age. The editor nodded, though her expression suggested she wasn't entirely satisfied with the deflection. I'd love to do a more in-depth piece on you personally, Rebecca. From Donovan wife to Donovan savior, compelling narrative. I prefer strategic business partner, I corrected firmly. And while I appreciate the interest, I'd rather the focus remain on the technology and design. Later, as the event wound down, I found a quiet moment alone on the hotel terrace, taking a break from the constant networking. The night air was cool against my skin, a welcome relief from the crowded ballroom. Hiding from your admirers? James's voice came from behind me. I turned, finding him leaning against the doorframe, champagne glass in hand, just taking a moment to breathe. He joined me at the railing, keeping a respectful distance. You handled that editor masterfully. Vivian was ready to eviscerate her for bringing up our history. It was a legitimate question from a journalistic perspective, I shrugged. The personal connection adds human interest to what might otherwise be a dry business story. Is that all it is to you now? A dry business story? I studied his profile in the dim terrace lighting. What else would it be, James? He turned to face me fully. I don't know. Redemption, vindication, a chance to prove my family wrong about you? I already proved them wrong, I replied quietly. I did that the day Horizon became profitable without a Donovan dollar or connection. Everything since then has just been confirmation. And us? What was that? The directness of the question caught me off guard. There is no us, James. There's you, there's me, and there's a business partnership between our companies. That's it? 4 years of marriage just erased? You erased it, I reminded him, an unexpected edge creeping into my voice. When you chose your family over our future. When you sent divorce papers because I wouldn't be the complacent, decorative wife they wanted. He winced. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. And I built a life despite it, not because of it. I set down my glass, suddenly needing to end this conversation. This partnership isn't about our past, James. It's about creating something innovative and worthwhile. Let's keep it that way. As I turned to leave, he spoke again, his voice barely audible. I still think about what might have been. If I'd been braver. I paused, not turning back. So do I sometimes. But thinking about it doesn't change anything. I walked away then, back into the bright lights and professional smiles of the ballroom, leaving the past and James in the shadows behind me. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Have you seen the business journal? I hadn't. Pulling up the digital edition, I found an article about the groundbreaking prominently displayed on the front page. The headline read, Horizon Haven, How Rebecca Mitchell's Vision is Reshaping Donovan Dynasty. The photo showed me center frame at the groundbreaking, flanked by Richard and James, all of us holding ceremonial shovels. But it was the caption that caught my eye. Horizon Innovations founder Rebecca Mitchell, center, leads groundbreaking, with Donovan Properties executives. The article itself was even more pointed, describing the partnership as a necessary evolution for the struggling Donovan enterprise, and me as the innovative force driving the project forward. It mentioned our previous marriage only in passing, focusing instead on how Donovan Properties had finally embraced Mitchell's long-advocated sustainable approach. My phone rang almost immediately. It was Richard Donovan. I assume you've seen the business journal, he said without preamble. Just now, I confirmed, keeping my tone neutral. This isn't the narrative we agreed on, he continued, anger evident in his voice. The press release clearly stated this was a collaborative effort between equal partners. I don't control what journalists write, Richard, but you influence it. That reporter quoted you directly about Donovan Properties finally catching up to the market. I frowned, scanning the article again. The quote was accurate. I had said something similar during a general media scrum, though not in the dismissive tone the article implied. The quote is taken somewhat out of context, I acknowledged, but the facts aren't wrong. Donovan Properties did resist sustainable development until market pressures made it necessary. We're supposed to be partners, Richard's voice hardened. This makes us look like we're riding your coattails. At the moment you are, I replied honestly. That's why you approached Horizon in the first place. The market values what we bring to the table right now. That doesn't diminish the Donovan contribution to the project. A tense silence followed. Finally, Richard spoke again, his tone carefully controlled. I expect this to be addressed at the next press opportunity. A united front, equal partnership. Can I count on that? Absolutely, I assured him. The success of Horizon Haven depends on both our company's strengths. That's always been my position. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, contemplating the article again. Part of me, a small, vindictive part I wasn't particularly proud of, felt satisfaction at seeing the Donovans portrayed as following my lead. But the larger part recognized that a successful partnership required mutual respect, even if that respect had been hard-won. I called the PR team, instructing them to emphasize the collaborative nature of the project in all future communications. The partnership was too valuable to sacrifice for momentary ego gratification, even if that gratification was richly deserved. As I prepared for the day's meetings, I realized something had shifted within me. The need to prove myself to the Donovans to make them acknowledge their misjudgment, was fading. It wasn't that I'd forgiven their past treatment, but rather that it no longer defined me. My success wasn't about them anymore. It was about the vision I'd always believed in. The trophy wife they had dismissed was now the business leader they needed. And somehow that fact alone was vindication enough. 3 months into the Horizon Haven project, warning signs began to appear. First came small delays, materials arriving late, permit applications stalling, subcontractors missing deadlines. Each issue was minor in isolation, but together, they created a concerning pattern. "Something's off," I told Maya during our weekly project review. "The Donovan team keeps blaming external factors, but these aren't normal construction hiccups." Maya scrolled through the latest progress report on her tablet. "We're already 2 weeks behind schedule, and the budget variance is creeping up." I tapped my pen against the conference table, considering the implications. Pull together a complete financial analysis of the project to date. Every invoice, every change order, every contingency allocation. I want to see exactly where the money is flowing. "You think they're mismanaging funds?" Maya asked, eyebrows raised. "I think I need data before making any accusations," I replied carefully. "But my instincts are telling me there's more happening than what we're being told." The following morning, Daniel requested an urgent meeting. He arrived in my office with rolled blueprints and a troubled expression. "The materials they're ordering for the energy management systems," he began without preamble, spreading the plans across my desk. "They're not what we specified." I leaned forward, examining the documentation. "These are cheaper components, lower efficiency, shorter lifespan." "Exactly," Daniel confirmed. "They claim it's a supply chain issue with our preferred vendors. But I checked. There's no backlog. They could get the right components within the standard lead time." "They're cutting corners," I said flatly, "trying to save money at the expense of quality." "It violates our contract specifications," Daniel pointed out. "The energy efficiency ratings we promised buyers won't be achievable with these substitutions." I straightened, a cold anger settling in my chest. "Document everything. I'll address this directly with Richard." The confrontation took place in Richard's office that afternoon. My territory would have given me too much of an advantage, and I wanted this resolved, not escalated. The Donovan headquarters remained as I remembered. Traditional dark wood, leather furniture, oil paintings, of previous generations watching from the walls. A temple to the past in a rapidly changing present. Richard rose from behind his massive desk as I entered, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Rebecca, this is unexpected. Is there an issue with the project?" "Several," I replied, not bothering with pleasantries. "May I?" I gestured to his conference table where I could spread out the documentation I'd brought. "Of course." He joined me as I laid out the blueprints, material specifications, and contract clauses. "Your team is substituting inferior components. Contrary to our agreed specifications," I began, pointing to the evidence. "The materials being ordered are cheaper, less efficient, and won't deliver the performance we've promised to buyers." Richard frowned, studying the paperwork. "I was told these were equivalent alternatives necessitated by supply issues." "There are no supply issues," I stated flatly. "I personally confirmed availability with 3 separate vendors this morning. These are deliberate substitutions that will reduce system performance by approximately 20%. "I'll look into it," Richard offered, his expression carefully neutral. "That's not sufficient," I countered. "The correct materials need to be ordered immediately, and I want a complete review of all procurement decisions to date. Our contract is explicit about meeting performance specifications." Richard's jaw tightened. "You're implying we're deliberately violating the contract." I'm stating facts, I corrected him. The motivation behind those facts is for you to explain. We stared at each other across the table, the pretense of harmonious partnership temporarily abandoned. Finally, Richard sighed, suddenly looking older than his years. We're having some cash flow challenges, he admitted reluctantly. Nothing serious, just temporary constraints while we wait for capital from investors. Cash flow challenges? Serious enough to compromise the quality of our flagship project? I pressed. It's a timing issue, he insisted. The next round of financing is being finalized. Once it comes through, we'll course correct. When? 2 weeks, 3 at most. I considered him carefully, weighing his words against his body language. Richard Donovan was proud, stubborn, and protective of his company's reputation. For him to admit even temporary financial difficulties suggested the problem might be more severe than he was letting on. 3 weeks, I agreed finally. In the meantime, no more unauthorized substitutions. If there are legitimate budget concerns, we discuss them openly and find solutions that don't compromise quality. Agreed, Richard nodded, relief briefly crossing his features. As I gathered my materials, a thought occurred to me. Does James know about these substitutions? Richard hesitated just long enough to answer my question without words. James is focused on the marketing and sales aspects. I handle operations. I see. I paused at the door. You should tell him. Transparency is essential in any partnership, business or otherwise. Back at my office, Maya was waiting with the financial analysis I'd requested. Her expression confirmed my suspicions before she spoke. They're in trouble, she said, handing me a folder of printouts. Serious trouble. I flipped through the documents, digesting the numbers quickly. The pattern was unmistakable. Donovan Properties was using the Horizon Haven project to shore up cash shortfalls elsewhere. Project funds were being temporarily diverted, invoices delayed, and corners cut wherever possible. They're robbing. Peter to pay Paul, I murmured. More like robbing Horizon Haven to keep 3 other failing projects afloat, Maya corrected. Based on these cash flows, they're using our project's financing to cover obligations on developments that are underwater. Which means those temporary constraints Richard mentioned are anything but temporary, Maya finished grimly. Their entire business model is imploding, Rebecca. Horizon Haven isn't just an evolution for them, it's a life raft. I sat back, absorbing the implications. The Donovans hadn't just needed my expertise, they'd needed my company's financial stability to save themselves from potential ruin. The irony would have been satisfying if it weren't so concerning for the project itself. Options? I asked, already running through scenarios in my mind. We could pull out, Maya suggested. The contract gives us clear grounds with these violations. And lose the showcase project we've been planning for years? No. I shook my head decisively. What else? Take control, she said simply. Renegotiate from a position of strength. If they're this desperate, we can dictate terms. I tapped the financial reports thoughtfully. We need more information first. How bad is it really? Are they facing temporary setbacks or potential bankruptcy? I have contacts who can discreetly look into their broader financial position, Maya offered. Do it, I authorized. In the meantime, I'll have a conversation with James. If anyone will be straight with me about the company's situation, it's him. I texted James that evening, suggesting a coffee meeting to discuss project concerns. His response was immediate, agreeing to meet at a small cafe halfway between our offices the following morning. He was waiting when I arrived, 2 cups already on the table. I remember how you take it, he said as I sat down. Black with 1 sugar. I took a sip, finding it exactly right. Thank you, though I'm not here for reminiscing. I gathered as much from your message, he acknowledged. What concerns you? I laid it out directly. the component substitutions, the cash flow issues Richard had admitted to, and the pattern of financial management we'd observed. James listened without interruption, his expression growing more troubled with each detail. "I didn't know about the substitutions," he said when I finished, running a hand through his hair in the familiar gesture of stress. "Dad's been keeping operational decisions close to the vest lately." "And the financial situation?" I pressed. "How bad is it really, James?" He hesitated, loyalty to his family warring with our partnership obligations. Finally, he sighed. "Bad. Not just temporary cash flow issues. We overextended on 3 luxury developments just as the market shifted. They're sitting half-built with few buyers, draining capital every month." "Why didn't you tell me this before we partnered?" "Would you have worked with us if you'd known?" he countered. "I might have structured the deal differently," I admitted. "Created more safeguards." "That's why." He met my gaze directly. "We needed this partnership, Rebecca. Horizon Haven isn't just our entry into sustainable development. It might be our last chance to save Donovan Properties." The honesty was refreshing, even if the content was alarming. "And now, what's the strategy for recovery?" "Horizon Haven succeeding is step 1, James explained. "If we can deliver on time and on budget, it proves we can adapt to the new market. That brings new investors, which helps us either complete or offload the struggling projects. But you can't deliver on time or on budget if you're cutting corners and diverting funds," I pointed out. "I know." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "That's why I need your help, Rebecca. Not just as a business partner, as someone who understands both the technology and my family." "What exactly are you asking?" "Help me convince my father to be fully transparent about our situation. Let me take a more active role in operations, and..." He hesitated. "Consider restructuring our partnership to provide more stability during this transition period." I studied him, searching for signs of manipulation or desperation. Instead, I found something unexpected: humility mixed with determination. This wasn't the James who had chosen family loyalty over our marriage. This was a man trying to salvage his family's legacy while embracing necessary change. "I'll need complete financial disclosure," I stated. "Not just for Horizon Haven, for all Donovan Properties holdings. My team will review everything and propose adjustments to our partnership structure." "Dad won't like that," James warned. "Dad doesn't have much choice," I replied evenly. "It's that or watch the partnership fall apart, along with any hope of saving the company." James nodded slowly. "I'll make it happen." Walking back to my office, I called Maya. "Set up a meeting with our financial and legal teams. We're going to need to restructure the Horizon Haven partnership." "They're that bad off?" she asked. "Worse than they've admitted, not quite as bad as we feared," I summarized. "They can be saved, but it's going to require significant changes." "And you want to save them?" Maya sounded genuinely curious rather than judgmental. I paused, considering the question. "I want Horizon Haven to succeed. I want our vision realized. If saving Donovan Properties is necessary for that to happen, then yes." "Just checking," Maya replied, "because this could be your chance to watch them sink while you sail away safely." "That wouldn't be victory," I said quietly. "That would be vindictiveness. I'm past that now." The meeting with the Donovan family executives was set for their boardroom the following week. This time, I brought reinforcements: Maya, Daniel, our CFO, and our legal counsel. The Donovans matched with Richard, Vivian, James, Thomas, and their corporate attorney. Richard opened with uncharacteristic humility. "Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Donovan Properties hasn't been fully transparent about our financial challenges. That ends today." What followed was a comprehensive overview of the company's position: 3 failing developments, dwindling cash reserves, nervous investors, and mounting debt. The picture was grim, but not hopeless. With proper restructuring and successful completion of Horizon Haven, recovery was possible. When Richard finished, all eyes turned to me. The power dynamic in the room was undeniable, the once mighty Donovans, awaiting judgment from the woman they had once dismissed as merely decorative. "Thank you for your honesty," I began, keeping my tone professional. "Based on this information, our team has prepared a proposal to move forward." I nodded to my CFO, who distributed folders to everyone present. Inside was our restructuring plan, comprehensive, fair, but unyielding in its requirements. The key points, I continued, are as follows. First, Horizon Innovations will increase our equity stake in Horizon Haven to 30%, providing an immediate capital infusion. Second, we'll establish a joint operational committee with equal representation, but Horizon holding the deciding vote on technical specifications. Third, all project funds will be held in a dedicated account with dual authorization requirements for disbursements. Richard's face darkened as he skimmed the document. "This is tantamount to a takeover." "It's a lifeline," I corrected him. "One that preserves the Donovan name and legacy while acknowledging market realities." "We'd be surrendering control of our flagship project," Vivian objected. "You'd be gaining a partner invested in your company's survival," I countered. "The alternative is watching Horizon Haven fail alongside your other developments, and with it, the entire Donovan enterprise." The tension in the room was palpable. Thomas studied the proposal with a banker's eye, his expression gradually shifting from resistance to reluctant acceptance. James had clearly been prepared for something along these lines, his focus on the practical implementation rather than the wounded pride his parents displayed. "We need time to consider this," Richard finally said. "You have 48 hours, I replied, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. "After that, we'll need to reevaluate our participation in the project entirely." As we gathered our materials to leave, Vivian approached me, her voice low. "You must be enjoying this." "This isn't about enjoyment, Vivian," I replied quietly. "It's about business, something you never believed I understood." "So this isn't revenge?" she challenged. "For how we treated you." I met her gaze directly. "If I wanted revenge, I'd walk away and watch what happens. I'm offering a partnership that saves your company while preserving our shared vision. That's not revenge. It's pragmatism." The 48 hours passed with tense negotiation over details, but the fundamental structure of our proposal remained intact. On Friday afternoon, we gathered again to sign the amended partnership agreement. The atmosphere was subdued but determined, a family business accepting necessary change to ensure its survival. As Richard signed the final document, he looked up at me with a complex expression. Part resignation, part respect. "You know, when James first brought you home, I told Vivian you were just another pretty face. I've never been more wrong about anyone in my life. I'm the same person I was then," I pointed out. "You just couldn't see past your own preconceptions. And now you hold the future of our company in your hands," he said, a hint of irony in his tone. "Not just me," I corrected him. "All of us working together. That's what partnership means." The news of the restructured partnership broke the following Monday. Business publications framed it as Horizon Innovations increases stake in groundbreaking development, with most analyzing, "It is a strategic expansion rather than a rescue operation." The Donovans' broader financial challenges remained private for now, though industry insiders surely suspected the truth. Construction resumed with renewed vigor and proper materials. The project management team was restructured with professionals from both companies, though key technical decisions now required my personal sign-off. Horizon Haven began to take shape, not just physically but in the public imagination, with pre-sales exceeding projections despite the premium pricing. 6 weeks after the restructuring, I received an unexpected visit from Olivia. My assistant looked apologetic as she announced her, clearly aware of our history. "Send her in," I instructed, curious about what could have brought the most hostile Donovan to my office. Olivia entered with less of her usual confidence, her designer outfit and perfect makeup somehow failing to project the superiority she typically exuded. "Thank you for seeing me," she began stiffly. "I won't take much of your time." "What can I do for you, Olivia?" I kept my tone neutral, neither welcoming nor dismissive. She placed a folder on my desk. "I've been developing a social media and digital content strategy for Horizon Haven. I wanted to present it directly." I opened the folder, genuinely surprised by the comprehensive and insightful plan inside. It leveraged cutting-edge platforms, influencer partnerships, and virtual reality tours to showcase the development's unique features. "This is impressive," I acknowledged, looking up at her. "Genuinely innovative." "Don't sound so surprised," she said, though without her usual bite. "I've been taking courses in digital marketing strategy. It's more than just Instagram posts." I studied her with new interest. "Why bring this to me directly? You could have submitted it through the marketing committee." Olivia hesitated, her carefully maintained facade cracking slightly. "Because I need you to take me seriously. Everyone's role is changing with this new structure, and I don't want to be sidelined." The vulnerability in her admission was unexpected. The Olivia I remembered would rather quit than acknowledge any need for validation, especially from me. "You want a real role in the project," I surmised. "I want to prove I'm more than just the Donovan daughter," she said, echoing sentiments I had once felt myself. "That I have actual skills to contribute." I closed the folder, making a decision. "The digital content director position is still open. Submit your application formally, and I'll make sure it receives fair consideration." "You would do that?" She seemed genuinely surprised. "After everything?" "This isn't about our history," I replied simply. "It's about who can add value to the project. This strategy suggests you can." Olivia nodded, a complexity of emotions crossing her face. "I wasn't kind to you when you were married to James." "No, you weren't," I agreed, not softening the truth. "I thought you were after our money, our connections," she continued. "Then when you built Horizon on your own, I told myself it was just luck, or that you'd used our name to open doors. And now," I prompted. "Now I know better," she admitted. "The way you've handled this partnership, the restructuring, you could have destroyed us. Instead, you're saving us while ensuring your company's interests are protected. It's what I would have done in your position." Coming from Olivia, this was as close to an apology as I was likely to get. I nodded, accepting it for what it was. "Submit your application," I repeated. "If you're the best person for the role, it's yours." After she left, Maya appeared in my doorway. Was that Olivia Donovan I saw leaving, voluntarily, without security escort? "She had a proposal for the project's digital strategy," I explained, handing her the folder. "It's actually quite good." Maya skimmed the contents, eyebrows rising. "Huh. The devil does have talents besides being mean." "Maya," I chided. Fine, she conceded. "People can change, grow, evolve, blah, blah, blah. Next, you'll be telling me Vivian brought you flowers and an apology card." "Not quite," I smiled. "But things are shifting. They see me differently now." "They see you accurately now," Maya corrected. "As the brilliant businesswoman you always were." "Perhaps," I acknowledged. "Though I've changed too. The Rebecca who married James wanted their approval desperately. The Rebecca sitting here now doesn't need it." "Which is exactly why they're finally giving it to you," Maya pointed out. "Ironic, isn't it?" Later that evening, I found myself working late, reviewing updated project timelines in my office. The city lights twinkled beyond my windows, reminiscent of the night years ago when James had proposed. I had been so full of hope then, so certain we could bridge the gap between our worlds. A knock at my door interrupted the memory. James stood in the doorway, looking tired but determined. "Working late?" he asked, stepping inside when I gestured him in. "Final approval on the revised construction schedule," I explained. "What brings you here after hours?" He sat in the chair across from my desk, loosening his tie slightly. "I wanted to talk without the project teams and families around, about where we go from here." "The pathway is clear," I replied, deliberately focusing on business. With the restructuring in place and proper oversight, Horizon Haven should proceed smoothly. The other Donovan developments can be methodically addressed once this one proves successful. "I'm not talking about the project," James said quietly. "I'm talking about us." I set down my pen, meeting his gaze directly. "There is no us, James. There's a business partnership that's working well. That's enough." "Is it?" he challenged. "Because I still feel something when we're in the same room. And sometimes I think you do too." The directness caught me off guard. In our marriage, James had often avoided difficult conversations, preferring harmony over honesty. This straightforward approach was new. "What I feel or don't feel isn't relevant," I replied carefully. "We tried once. You chose your family over our marriage." "I made the wrong choice," he admitted, no hesitation in his voice. "I've had 4 years to recognize that mistake. 4 years watching you build something extraordinary while I helped manage a company that was slowly failing because it refused to change. And now?" I kept my expression neutral, despite the unexpected direction of the conversation. "Now I'm asking if there's any possibility of a second chance," he said simply. "Not immediately, not without work and time, but someday." The question hung in the air between us, weighted with history and possibility. Part of me, a part I thought long silenced, responded to the sincerity in his eyes. But the wiser, more experienced Rebecca recognized the complications such a reconciliation would create. "The dynamics are all wrong, James," I finally said. "I'm now effectively your company's savior and part controller. Any personal relationship would blur boundaries that need to remain clear." "That's a practical objection, not an emotional one," he noted. "You didn't say you don't have feelings anymore." "Because I'm being honest," I acknowledged. "There will always be something between us. But feelings aren't enough. They never were." "What if things were different?" he pressed. "After Horizon. Haven is established after Donovan Properties stabilizes, when we could approach each other as equals again." I considered his words carefully. "I can't promise anything, James. I won't put my life on hold for a possibility." "I'm not asking you to," he assured me. "I'm just asking you to leave the door unlocked, even if it remains closed for now." The metaphor was apt. A locked door signified finality, while an unlocked one acknowledged potential, however uncertain. "I won't lock it," I conceded, "but neither will I be waiting beside it." He smiled, a genuine expression that reminded me of our early days. "That's fair. More than fair, given our history." As he rose to leave, a thought occurred to me. "Your parents, how would they feel about this conversation?" James laughed softly, differently than they once did. Nothing like financial disaster to readjust one's priorities. Mother actually suggested I should try to reconnect with you. Vivian did. I couldn't hide my shock. Her exact words were, "That woman has more business sense than all the Donovans combined. We were fools to lose her from the family." He shrugged. Not exactly a warm endorsement, but progress from where she started. After he left, I stood at my window for a long time, watching the city below. The trophy wife they had once dismissed was now the businesswoman they respected, even needed. The transformation wasn't in me. I had always been both intelligent and capable, but in their perception. The irony wasn't lost on me. It had taken the near collapse of their company for the Donovans to see my true value. Yet somehow, the vindication felt hollow. I didn't want their respect because they needed my money and business acumen. I had wanted it because it was deserved, regardless of circumstance. As for James and his request for potential reconciliation, that was a complexity for another day. For now, Horizon Haven demanded my focus, along with the responsibility I'd taken on for the Donovan employees who depended on the project's success for their livelihoods. The trophy wife had become the savior, the decorative accessory now the essential foundation. But most importantly, Rebecca Mitchell was exactly where she had always been meant to be, at the helm of her own destiny, making decisions based on vision rather than validation. The door might remain unlocked, but I was no longer waiting on the other side for someone to open it. That, perhaps, was the most significant change of all. 18 months after the restructuring agreement, I stood on the rooftop garden of the completed Horizon Haven model unit, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Below me, workers were putting final touches on the common areas in preparation for next week's grand opening. The development had transformed from renderings and promises into a living, breathing reality. 6 elegant buildings arranged around central green spaces, each roof covered with gardens and solar arrays. The entire community designed to produce more energy than it consumed. "Quite a view," Maya said, joining me at the edge of the garden. "Worth all the headaches?" I smiled, taking in the sustainable utopia we'd created. Every single one. The journey to this moment had been far from smooth. Construction delays, budget adjustments, personality conflicts, all the normal challenges of a major development, amplified by the complex dynamics between Horizon and the Donovans. Yet somehow we'd navigated each obstacle, emerging with a project that exceeded even my ambitious vision. "The press preview tomorrow is completely booked," Maya informed me, checking her phone. "Every major publication, plus those sustainability bloggers you wanted. Even that architecture critic who hates everything is coming." "Good," I nodded. "We need the coverage to be comprehensive. This isn't just a luxury development. It's a template for the future." Speaking of the future, Maya hesitated. James was asking about the seating arrangement for the gala. Specifically, whether you'd be comfortable with him at your table. I turned away from the view, considering the question. In the months since our late-night conversation in my office, James and I had maintained a strictly professional relationship. He'd respected my boundaries while proving himself a capable and committed partner in the project. The door remained unlocked as promised, but neither of us had made any move to open it. "That's fine," I decided. "The focus should be on presenting a unified front for the project. Besides, we've worked well together." Maya studied me with her trademark perceptiveness. "Just worked well together? Nothing more developing there?" "Maya," I warned lightly. "Fine, fine," she raised her hands in surrender. "Just checking. As your best friend, it's my job to periodically take the emotional temperature. And as my COO, it's your job to make sure this launch goes perfectly," I reminded her. "Which table arrangement will send the strongest message about our partnership?" "Having you and James co-hosting would certainly reinforce the collaborative nature of the project," she admitted. "Plus, Vivian would be at the secondary table, which gives me personal satisfaction." I laughed despite myself. Not still holding a grudge after all this time? "I'm just saying, watching her pretend she always believed in you has been both entertaining and infuriating." Maya checked her watch. "We should head down. The lighting test is scheduled to start in 10 minutes. As we made our way through the model unit, a stunning 3-bedroom showcase of sustainable luxury, I found myself reflecting on the journey. From the dismissed trophy wife to the business leader who had saved the Donovan empire while advancing my own company's mission. The symmetry was almost too perfect, like something from a melodramatic screenplay rather than real life. The lighting test was a spectacular display of the integrated systems we'd pioneered. As darkness fell, the entire community came alive, with gentle illumination, pathways lit by motion-sensitive LED fixtures, building facades washed in subtle light that highlighted their architectural features, all powered by the day's captured solar energy. It was beautiful, efficient, and exactly what I had envisioned years ago when Horizon was just a startup with big dreams. "It's magnificent," came a voice from behind me. I turned to find Richard Donovan observing the display, his expression one of genuine appreciation. "It is," I agreed, surprised by his presence. "I didn't realize you were visiting the site today." "Wanted to see it without the crowds and cameras," he explained, coming to stand beside me. "To really take it in." We watched in companionable silence as the final lighting elements activated. The central fountain with its water-conserving design, the community greenhouse with its climate-controlled systems. Everything working in perfect harmony, just as I'd designed. "You know," Richard finally said, "I've been in this business for nearly 50 years, built hundreds of properties across the region, but I've never created anything like this." "It's a new approach," I acknowledged. "It's more than that," he shook his head. "It's visionary. The kind of project that defines a career or reshapes an industry." Coming from Richard Donovan, this was extraordinary praise. The man who had once dismissed my business as a hobby was now acknowledging its transformative potential. "Thank you," I said simply. "I owe you more than thanks," he replied, his voice uncharacteristically reflective. "You saved my company, Rebecca. My family's legacy. When everything was crumbling around us, you could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. That wouldn't have served anyone's interests," I pointed out. "Certainly not mine." "Still," he insisted, "there was a moment when you held all the power. You could have demanded complete control, forced us out entirely. The fact that you didn't, that you structured a true partnership, says something about your character." I studied the older man's profile, noting the new lines of humility that had replaced his former arrogance. "You know what's ironic, Richard? You spent years underestimating me because you saw me as just a pretty accessory for your son. Now you're overestimating me by attributing my business decisions to nobility of character." He looked at me quizzically. "I didn't save Donovan Properties out of forgiveness or kindness," I clarified. "I did it because it was the smart business move. Your company had assets, expertise, and connections that complemented Horizon's strengths. Together, we could create something neither could achieve alone." Richard considered this, then laughed softly. "And here I thought you might have developed a sentimental attachment to the family name." "The only name I'm attached to is the one on my business cards," I replied, though without rancor. "Mitchell. The name that's on our patents, our contracts, and soon on the stock exchange when we go public next quarter." This caught his attention. "You're proceeding with the IPO?" "The paperwork was filed last week," I confirmed. "The success of Horizon Haven makes this the optimal timing." "Congratulations," he said, and seemed to genuinely mean it. "Though I assume this will change our partnership structure moving forward." "Not necessarily," I assured him. "The board sees value in maintaining strong strategic alliances. As long as Donovan Properties continues meeting its obligations, the partnership remains beneficial to our shareholders." A ghost of the old Richard surfaced in his slight smirk. "How generous of your board." "How pragmatic," I corrected him. "This was never personal, Richard. Not the restructuring, not the partnership, not the success we're about to celebrate. It's business, something your family finally learned to separate from ego." He nodded slowly, accepting the gentle rebuke. "Some lessons come later than others, but they do come." As we turned to leave the illuminated showcase, Richard paused. One more thing, Rebecca. About James. That's not a business conversation. I cut him off politely, but firmly. Fair enough, he conceded. Though if it were, I'd advise considering all potential mergers based on their strategic value rather than historical performance. Despite myself, I smiled at the clumsy metaphor. I'll take that under advisement. The following morning brought the press preview, a carefully orchestrated event designed to showcase both the technological innovations and luxury aspects of Horizon Haven. Journalists and influencers toured the property in small groups, led by technical experts from Horizon and design specialists from Donovan Properties. The coverage began appearing online almost immediately, overwhelmingly positive, with particular praise for the seamless integration of cutting-edge sustainability features with traditional luxury aesthetics. By mid-afternoon, my phone was buzzing constantly with congratulatory messages and interview requests. The business community was taking notice, with analysts highlighting the project as evidence of both Horizon's continued innovation and Donovan Properties' successful reinvention. The Wall Street Journal is calling it the new standard for luxury development, Maya reported, scanning her tablet as we prepared for the evening's formal gala. And TechCrunch says you've redefined sustainable living for the affluent market. They're praising the project, not me personally, I pointed out. Actually, Maya scrolled further, Bloomberg specifically calls you the visionary force behind residential sustainability's mainstream breakthrough. And there's a whole paragraph about your journey from startup founder to industry transformer. Before I could respond, my assistant knocked at the door of the temporary office we'd set up on site. Ms. Mitchell, there's a delivery for you. She wheeled in an elegant arrangement of white orchids, minimalist and striking. The card was simple. To new beginnings. J. Maya raised an eyebrow, but, for once, refrained from commenting. I ran my fingers over the embossed card, memories surfacing unbidden. James had given me white orchids on our first anniversary, an inside joke about how I'd once told him that red roses were too conventional for my taste. The fact that he remembered such a detail after all this time was unsettling. I should finish getting ready, I said to Maya, setting the card aside. The guests will be arriving in an hour. The gala was held in Horizon Haven's central pavilion, a stunning glass and sustainable timber structure that served as the community's social hub. As darkness fell, the building seemed to glow from within, highlighting the innovative materials and design elements that made the project unique. I greeted guests in a simple but elegant black gown, conscious of striking the right balance between sophisticated business leader and approachable visionary. The attendees represented a cross-section of influence: investors, media, government, officials, industry leaders, all eager to associate themselves with what was rapidly being hailed as the development of the year. The Donovans played their roles perfectly. Richard and Vivian charmed the old money contingent, emphasizing how the project honored their legacy of quality while embracing innovation. Thomas handled the financial community, outlining the economic benefits of sustainable development. Olivia, newly confident in her digital strategy role, guided social media influencers through the property's most photogenic features. And James moved through the crowd with easy grace, neither avoiding me nor seeking me out too obviously. When our paths naturally crossed during the evening, our interactions were warm but professional, giving no hint of our complicated history to outside observers. Dinner was served at elegantly appointed tables throughout the pavilion, with James and I co-hosting the central table of key investors and media figures. The conversation flowed smoothly, focusing on the project's innovations and future implications rather than personal dynamics. As dessert was being served, Richard rose to offer a toast. The room quieted, all attention turning to the Donovan patriarch. For 50 years, he began, the Donovan name has been synonymous with luxury real estate in this region. We built our reputation on tradition, consistency, and an unwavering commitment to quality. He paused, surveying the room. But traditions that don't evolve become relics. Companies that don't adapt become footnotes in history books. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Horizon Haven represents not just a new direction for Donovan Properties, but a new standard for our entire industry, Richard continued. And none of it would have been possible without the vision and determination of one person. He turned toward me, raising his glass. Rebecca Mitchell saw the future of luxury living before any of us. She understood that true sustainability could enhance rather than compromise quality. And when we finally had the wisdom to listen, she had the generosity to collaborate. The word choice, generosity rather than business sense, was deliberate. I knew. A public acknowledgement of the power dynamic that had shifted so dramatically. To Rebecca, Richard concluded, whose vision has transformed not just this development, but an entire company's understanding of what luxury means in the 21st century. The applause was enthusiastic, cameras flashing as I rose to accept the recognition. Public validation from the man who had once dismissed me was sweet, if slightly surreal. Thank you, Richard, I responded, taking the microphone. But Horizon Haven isn't the achievement of any one person or company. It represents what's possible when different strengths come together in true partnership. I went on to acknowledge the contributions of both companies' teams, the local officials who had supported innovative zoning approaches, and the early buyers who had embraced the sustainable luxury concept. It was a generous speech that spread credit widely, but everyone in the room understood the reality. This was my vision brought to life, with the Donovans now supporting players in a story they once would have dominated. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, I found a quiet moment alone on the pavilion's terrace, enjoying the cool night air and the view of the illuminated development. Footsteps behind me signaled I wasn't alone for long. Quite a night, James said, coming to stand beside me at the railing. Everything you envisioned and more. It exceeded even my expectations, I admitted. The integration worked better than I'd hoped. I wasn't just talking about the development, he clarified. Watching you receive that recognition from my father, seeing how far you've come professionally, it's remarkable. The same Rebecca stood before him years ago, I pointed out. He just couldn't see past his own prejudices then. We were all blind in different ways, James acknowledged. I knew how brilliant you were, but I lacked the courage to stand up for you, to choose you. The conversation was veering into personal territory I'd carefully avoided for months. The orchids were lovely, I said, changing the subject slightly. Thank you. You remembered, he smiled. Our first anniversary. I remember everything, James, I said quietly. The good and the bad. A comfortable silence fell between us as we both contemplated the transformed landscape of our relationship. Professional success, where personal failure had once dominated. What happens next? He finally asked. After the grand opening, after the sales are finalized, where does Horizon go from here? We go public next quarter, I replied. Expand into commercial developments, possibly international markets. The vision was never limited to one project. And Donovan Properties? Do we continue as partners? The question was professional on the surface, but carried personal undertones we both recognized. That depends, I said carefully, on whether the partnership continues to serve both companies' interests. And if it does, he pressed. I turned to face him directly. Then we move forward professionally, one project at a time, one decision at a time. James studied me in the soft lighting, his expression thoughtful. And personally, is that door still unlocked? The question hung between us, weighted with shared history and possibility. In the 18 months since our late-night conversation in my office, much had changed. The Donovans had accepted my leadership, embraced my vision, acknowledged my value beyond any connection to their son. James had proven himself a reliable partner, respectful of boundaries, committed to the project's success. The power dynamics that had once concerned me had stabilized into something more balanced. "The door is still unlocked," I confirmed, "but opening it would be complicated, for both personal and professional reasons." "Complicated doesn't mean impossible," he suggested. "No," I agreed, "just requiring careful consideration." He smiled. At that, the measured response so characteristic of the businesswoman I'd become. Would having dinner together sometime constitute careful consideration? Despite myself, I smiled back. It might, though not until after the grand opening and initial sales period. The project needs our undivided attention right now. "Always the consummate professional," he observed, but his tone was admiring rather than critical. "All right then, dinner, after the initial sales period. Not as business partners discussing the project, but as two people with a shared history exploring whether there might be a shared future." I didn't agree to that much, I pointed out, though without real objection. "You didn't disagree either," he countered with a hint of the charm that had first attracted me years ago. Before I could respond, Maya appeared at the terrace entrance. "Rebecca, the mayor is leaving and wants to say goodbye personally." "Of course," I nodded, grateful for the timely interruption. To James, I added, "We'll continue this conversation later." "I'm counting on it," he replied. The grand opening, 3 days later, was an unqualified success. All available units in the first phase sold within 48 hours, many to buyers who had been on the waiting list for months. Media coverage was extensive and overwhelmingly positive, highlighting both the innovative features and the unexpected collaboration between traditional luxury developers and sustainability pioneers. In the weeks that followed, Horizon's stock value climbed steadily in anticipation of the IPO. Analyst reports praised our business model, technological innovations, and strategic partnerships, particularly the transformed relationship with Donovan Properties. The company that had once belittled my ambitions was now considered fortunate to be associated with my success. The irony wasn't lost on me, though I took less satisfaction in it than I might have once expected. Vindication, it turned out, was less fulfilling than creation. Seeing my vision realized, watching people actually living in the sustainable community we'd built, brought deeper satisfaction than any amount of "I told you so" could provide. 2 months after the grand opening, with the project firmly established as a success and the initial sales period concluded, I finally agreed to dinner with James. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown, neutral territory, intimate enough for conversation, but public enough to maintain appropriate boundaries. "No business talk," he proposed as our wine was poured. "Just two people catching up." "Agreed," I nodded. "Though that eliminates most of what we've been doing for the past 2 years. "Then let's talk about what we've been reading, watching, thinking," he suggested. "The parts of our lives that don't appear in annual reports or press releases." And surprisingly, we did. The conversation flowed easily, touching on books, films, travel experiences, philosophical questions, all the things we'd once discussed in the early days of our relationship, before family expectations and professional conflicts had overshadowed everything else. As dessert arrived, James asked the question that had been hovering unspoken all evening. "Are you happy, Rebecca? Not just successful. Are you actually happy?" I considered the question seriously. I'm fulfilled professionally. I've created something meaningful, something that advances values I believe in. That brings a certain satisfaction. "But personal happiness?" he pressed gently. "That's more complicated," I admitted. "I have good friends, interesting work, financial security. By most measures, I should be completely happy. But there are moments," I said carefully, When achievements feel hollow without someone to share them with. Someone who understands both the journey and the destination. James nodded, not rushing to fill the vulnerable moment with platitudes or premature declarations. "I understand that feeling," he said simply. As we left the restaurant, walking slowly in the cool evening air, a comfortable silence settled between us. This wasn't the passionate reconciliation of romantic movies, but something more measured. Two adults considering possibilities with open eyes, aware of both potential and pitfalls. "I'd like to do this again," James said as we reached my car. No pressure, no timeline, just continuing the conversation. I studied him in the streetlight, seeing both the man I'd once loved and the person he'd become in the intervening years. More mature, less concerned with pleasing his family, more willing to stand by his own convictions. "I think I'd like that," I agreed. "Though we still need to move carefully. There's a lot at stake professionally." "Always the pragmatist," he smiled. "How about this? We agree that whatever happens personally stays separate from our business relationship. One doesn't influence the other." "That's easier said than done," I pointed out. "Most worthwhile things are," he countered. He didn't. "Try to kiss me goodnight." Another sign of the respect he'd developed for boundaries and timing. Instead, he simply squeezed my hand gently before walking to his own car. I watched him go, a complex mix of emotions swirling within me. There was still attraction, still connection, but also hard-won wisdom about compatibility and values alignment. The young woman who had fallen headlong into love with James Donovan no longer existed. In her place stood someone more discerning, more self-possessed, more aware of her own worth. Whatever developed between us now, if anything did, would be built on entirely different foundations than our first relationship. Not on his family's approval or my desire for validation, but on mutual respect between equals. The following morning, as I prepared for an investor meeting ahead of the IPO, Maya arrived at my office with her usual coffee offering and perceptive gaze. "So?" she prompted. "How was dinner with the ex?" "Pleasant," I replied neutrally. "We agreed to do it again sometime." "Pleasant," Maya repeated skeptically. "That's the word you're going with? For dinner with the man you once loved enough to defy his entire family?" I accepted the coffee with a small smile. "What would you prefer? Passionate? Tumultuous? Those days are behind us, Maya. If anything happens now, it will be with clear eyes and careful consideration." "Romance by spreadsheet analysis," she teased. "Very on brand for CEO Rebecca." "Not by spreadsheet," I corrected her. "By values alignment. By mutual respect. By understanding that we're both different people now than we were 5 years ago." Maya's expression softened. "You know I just want you to be happy, right? However that looks." "I know," I assured her. "And I am happy. With my life, my work, my choices. Anything else that develops is bonus, not necessity." That evening, I found myself back at Horizon Haven, walking the grounds as residents began moving in. Lights turned on in windows, people greeted neighbors in the common areas. Children played in the safe central green spaces. It was exactly the community I had envisioned: sustainable, beautiful, alive. My phone buzzed with a message from James. "Just left a planning meeting for the next phase. The team is proposing we incorporate your latest battery technology. Your vision keeps expanding." I smiled at the simple acknowledgement, typing back, "Innovation never stops. Neither does improvement." His response came quickly. "Speaking of improvement, dinner again next week?" I found a place with an impressive sustainability program. I hesitated only briefly before replying, "I'd like that." As I continued my walk through the development, a young couple approached, recognition dawning on their faces. "Ms. Mitchell?" the woman asked tentatively. We're the Alvarezes. We just moved into Building 3 last week. Welcome to Horizon. Haven, I smiled. How are you settling in? It's incredible, she enthused. The energy management system, the community spaces, everything is exactly as promised. Better even. Her husband nodded agreement. We were on the waiting list for months, worth every day of the wait. I'm so glad to hear that, I replied, genuinely pleased. This development was designed to be more than just housing. It's meant to be a community, a lifestyle. It's funny, Mrs. Alvarez continued. When we told my parents we were buying here, they were skeptical. All that eco stuff is just marketing, they said. But after visiting, they're completely converted. My dad's even talking about downsizing into phase 2 when it's completed. That's exactly the response we hoped for, I told them. Showing that sustainability enhances luxury rather than diminishing. As we parted ways, I felt a deep satisfaction that transcended professional pride. The Donovan family had once dismissed my vision as a trendy distraction, but now that vision was literally changing how people lived and how they thought about living. The ultimate vindication wasn't in proving the Donovans wrong. It was in creating something so compelling that even former skeptics became believers. It wasn't about them acknowledging my worth. It was about the world recognizing the value of the future I'd envisioned. The trophy wife label had long since faded, replaced by visionary, innovator, industry leader. Yet none of those external validations matched the simple satisfaction of seeing my ideas become reality, improving lives while preserving resources for future generations. 3 months after Horizon Haven's opening, Horizon Innovations went public. The IPO was oversubscribed, with the stock price jumping 28% on the first day of trading. Financial analysts pointed to the success of Horizon Haven as proof of concept, while environmental advocates celebrated the mainstreaming of sustainable development. Standing on the stock exchange floor as the opening bell rang, I felt the weight of the journey, from a small startup with big ideas to a publicly traded company reshaping how people thought about luxury and sustainability. The Donovan family attended the IPO celebration, presenting a united front of support that would have been unimaginable 5 years earlier. Vivian, elegantly attired as always, even posed for photos with me, the business pages juxtaposing the traditional luxury matriarch with the innovative sustainability pioneer. The visual storytelling wasn't lost on either of us. "Quite a day," she commented during a quiet moment at the reception. "Your parents must be very proud." "They are," I nodded, surprised by her personal reference. My middle-class parents had always been supportive of my ambitions, even when they didn't fully understand them. Their belief in me had never wavered, unlike some others. Vivian seemed to catch the unspoken comparison. "We were wrong about you, Rebecca. I was wrong." The admission, coming from the woman who had once dismissed me as decorative, carried a certain weight. "Yes, you were," I agreed simply. "You could have destroyed us," she continued. "When our company was failing, when you held all the leverage, you could have taken everything." "That would have been bad business," I pointed out. "And ultimately, unsatisfying." "Nevertheless," she persisted, "you showed a certain grace. One I'm not sure I would have demonstrated in your position." I studied her carefully, noting the genuine reflection in her expression. "People can surprise you, Vivian, when given the chance." "Indeed they can," she agreed, her gaze drifting to where James stood chatting with investors. "Some more pleasantly than others." The hint was unmistakable. Our carefully orchestrated business dinners over the past few months hadn't gone unnoticed. Whether she approved or merely recognized the potential advantages of reconciliation remained unclear, and ultimately irrelevant. That decision belonged to James and me alone. "If you'll excuse me," I said politely, "I should check in with some of our new shareholders." As the company grew, so did the range of our projects. Horizon's technology was integrated into commercial developments, university campuses, and municipal infrastructure. We pioneered community-scale energy storage solutions that transformed how neighborhoods managed power. Each innovation built on the last, expanding the vision I'd held since the beginning. Donovan Properties, too, evolved under the partnership. Their subsequent developments incorporated sustainable features from the start, positioning the company as a forward-thinking luxury brand rather than a traditional holdover. The transformation saved their business, rebuilding their reputation and financial stability. James and I continued our careful exploration of reconciliation, moving from occasional dinners to regular, intentional time together. We rediscovered shared interests, built new communication patterns, and gradually tested whether the feelings that had once connected us could form a stronger foundation the second time around. 6 months after the IPO, he invited me to dinner at his newly purchased home, a modern, energy-efficient design overlooking the harbor. The location was stunning, the architecture impressive, but what caught my attention was the solar array and battery system prominently integrated into the property. Horizon Technology, I noted, recognizing our latest residential model. Good choice. Only the best, he smiled, leading me through the house. The interior was a thoughtful blend of sustainable materials and timeless design, sophisticated without ostentation. Very different from the traditional Donovan aesthetic I remembered. As we enjoyed dinner on the terrace, overlooking the water and the city lights beyond, James grew uncharacteristically serious. "I've been thinking a lot about second chances," he began, "about how rare they are and how easily they can be missed." I set down my wine glass, recognizing the shift in tone. "James, let me finish," he requested gently. 5 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I chose family expectations over personal happiness. I chose the comfortable path over the right one, and I lost you because of it. We both made choices, I reminded him. I could have compromised more, found a middle ground. No, he shook his head firmly. You were right to demand respect. You were right about the business, about sustainability, about everything. And I was a coward for not standing beside you. The admission hung in the air between us, honest and unvarnished. The man I was then, he continued, doesn't deserve a second chance. But I'm not that man anymore. The past few years, watching you succeed, seeing my family's company nearly fail working alongside you to build something truly meaningful, I've changed, grown. I know, I acknowledged. I've seen it. These past months with you have been, he searched for the right word, illuminating. Reminding me of why I fell in love with you in the first place, while showing me new depths I never fully appreciated before. My heart quickened at the direction of his words, though my expression remained carefully composed. I'm not asking for everything back the way it was, James clarified. That's not possible and probably not desirable. We're different people now. But I am asking if you'd be willing to explore what might be possible between those different people. Something new built on stronger foundations. What about your family? I asked, the question that couldn't be avoided. Their opinion clearly mattered deeply to you before. Their opinion has evolved, he replied with a wry smile. Nothing like nearly losing everything to adjust one's priorities. But more importantly, my relationship with them has changed. I respect their experience while making my own decisions. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine, offering rather than presuming. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said. Just an openness to the possibility, to seeing where this might lead, without the baggage of the past weighing us down. I looked at his extended hand, then up at his face. Earnest, hopeful, but prepared for rejection. The James that I'd married would have pushed harder, been less patient. This James understood the value of time, of careful consideration. Slowly, deliberately, I placed my hand in his. "I'm open to the possibility," I said softly. "One day at a time." The smile that spread across his face held none of the triumph I might have once feared, only genuine joy and perhaps a touch of relief. "One day at a time," he agreed. The following months brought a natural progression in our relationship. Still careful, still mindful of the past, but increasingly comfortable with the present. We attended industry events together, collaborated on new projects, and gradually integrated our personal lives. The business media noted the apparent reconciliation with predictable speculation, but we maintained our privacy, neither confirming nor denying the rumors that swirled. Vivian, to my surprise, became an unexpected ally. Whether motivated by genuine change of heart or pragmatic acceptance of reality, she made efforts to demonstrate her respect, recommending me for industry leadership positions, crediting my innovations in interviews, even hosting a dinner at the Donovan estate where I was seated in the position of honor. "Strategic," Maya commented when I recounted the evening. "She's realized which way the wind is blowing and adjusted her sails accordingly." "Perhaps," I acknowledged. "Or perhaps people can genuinely change when confronted with the consequences of their actions." "You've gotten philosophical in your success," she teased. "Next, you'll be telling me you actually enjoy those country club charity events Vivian keeps inviting you to." "I wouldn't go that far," I laughed. "But I will say there's a certain satisfaction in walking into those rooms now, not as James's wife hoping for acceptance, but as Rebecca Mitchell, CEO, whose presence adds value to their event." "Vindication is sweet," Maya agreed. "It's not about vindication anymore," I realized as I said it. "It's about recognition. Not of me personally, but of what I represent. The future they once resisted, now embraced as inevitable." 1 year after Horizon Haven's grand opening, the development had become the model for sustainable luxury living in the region. Every unit was occupied, with a waiting list for future phases. The community functioned exactly as designed: energy positive, water conserving, fostering both environmental and social sustainability. Residents reported higher satisfaction than in traditional luxury developments, with the integrated technology and community features consistently rated as the most valuable aspects. To mark the anniversary, Donovan Horizon hosted a community celebration, less formal than the opening gala, more focused on the residents and the living experience. As I walked through the common areas, greeting families and listening to their experiences, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment that transcended the professional milestone. "Ms. Mitchell," called a familiar voice. Mrs. Alvarez approached with an older couple in tow. "These are my parents, the skeptics I told you about months ago. Now they're thinking of buying in phase 2. I shook hands with the couple who enthusiastically shared how their daughter's experience had changed their perception of sustainable living. "We thought it was all hype," Mr. Alvarez Sr. admitted. "Just marketing to sell overpriced units. But this," he gestured around at the thriving community, "this is the real deal. The technology actually works. The lifestyle actually delivers." "That's our entire mission," I told him. "Not just talking about sustainability, but demonstrating it in ways people can experience daily." As they moved on to explore more of the community, James joined me, offering a glass of champagne. "Success looks good on you," he observed with a smile. "So does humility on you," I countered lightly, accepting the glass. He laughed, acknowledging the gentle jab. "Well deserved. Amazing what losing almost everything teaches you about what really matters." We walked together through the celebration, greeting residents and team members. The professional partnership we'd rebuilt now comfortably intertwined with the personal relationship we were carefully reconstructing. Not a return to the past, but something new, stronger, more honest, more equal. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, We found ourselves on the rooftop garden where I had stood 18 months earlier, contemplating the then unfinished development. Now completed and thriving, it stretched before us under the night sky, a testament to what vision and persistence could achieve. "I've been thinking about timing," James said, leaning against the railing beside me. "About how sometimes things need to fall apart before they can be rebuilt properly." "Philosophical tonight," I noted with a smile. "The anniversary has me reflective," he admitted. "If we had stayed together back then, if I had chosen differently, I'm not sure we would have created this." He gestured to the community below. "The separation, as painful as it was, allowed you to build Horizon without compromise, without the shadow of the Donovan legacy hanging over you. And it forced your family to confront some hard truths about their business model," I added. "Sometimes failure is the best teacher." "We needed to fail," he nodded. "I needed to fail, to understand what really mattered, in business and in life." The honesty in his voice touched something deep within me. This was the James I had glimpsed early in our relationship, before family expectations and corporate pressures had obscured. His better nature. Not perfect, but thoughtful, capable of growth and genuine self-reflection. "Do you think," he asked carefully, "that we could have avoided all the pain? Found a middle path somehow?" I considered the question seriously, looking back on our journey with the clarity of distance. "No," I finally replied. "We both needed to become different people. I needed to prove my vision on my own terms. You needed to step out from your father's shadow. Your family needed to face the consequences of their short-sightedness. And now?" He turned to face me fully, the city lights reflected in his eyes. "Now we're those different people," I said simply, "with clear eyes about who we are and what we want." 6 months later, Horizon Innovations was preparing to break ground on our most ambitious project yet, a mixed-use development that would integrate residential, commercial, and educational spaces into a self-sustaining community. The design incorporated all the lessons from Horizon Haven, scaled to create a true urban ecosystem. The partnership with Donovan Properties had expanded accordingly, with their expertise in luxury amenities complementing our technological innovation. The families who had once dismissed my ideas as trendy distractions now proudly marketed their association with the Mitchell method of sustainable development. The irony wasn't lost on me, though it no longer carried the emotional charge it once had. Success was its own vindication, rendering old slights increasingly irrelevant. My relationship with James had evolved similarly, the past acknowledged but no longer defining our present. We had built something new together, professionally and personally, based on mutual respect and shared values, rather than the magnetic attraction that had initially drawn us together. That attraction remained, of course, but was now grounded in something more substantial. A genuine appreciation of each other's strengths, a clear-eyed acceptance of our flaws, and a conscious choice to move forward together rather than apart. "The board wants to discuss succession planning," Maya informed me one morning, dropping a folder on my desk with her usual directness. "For when you eventually step back from day-to-day operations to focus on innovation and strategic vision." "I'm only 36, I reminded her, amused by the presumption. "A bit early for retirement planning." "Not retirement, evolution," she corrected. "They see your value as a visionary, not just an operational CEO. They want to protect that for the long term. And who do they envision running daily operations while I'm off having visionary thoughts?" I asked, scanning the preliminary documents. Maya hesitated. "There's some support for James, actually. His performance as Chief Strategy Officer has impressed them. The fact that he successfully guided Donovan Properties through its transformation demonstrates his leadership capabilities." I looked up, surprised. "That would be complicated." "Which is why they're approaching it carefully," she nodded. But from a purely business perspective, the logic is sound. He understands both your vision and how to implement it practically. The markets would respond well to the continuity. And the personal entanglement? You're both adults, Maya shrugged. Plenty of couples manage to work together effectively. Besides, you two have already proven you can separate business from personal matters. I set the folder aside, needing time to process the implications. Let me think about it. It's not a decision to rush. That evening, I raised the subject with James over dinner at my downtown apartment, a space that had increasingly become our shared domain, though we maintained separate residences. The board wants to groom you as my eventual replacement as CEO, I stated without preamble, watching his reaction carefully. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by thoughtful consideration rather than immediate ambition, another sign of how he'd changed from the young executive eager to prove himself to his father. That's unexpected, he said finally, and potentially problematic for us personally. My thoughts exactly, I nodded, relieved by his perspective. Though Maya argues it makes perfect business sense. It does, he acknowledged. But business isn't everything. There's us to consider. The simple acknowledgement of us as a priority warmed me. 5 years ago, business and family expectations had taken precedence over our relationship. Now, despite our professional success, personal considerations weren't dismissed as secondary. What do you think? He asked, genuinely wanting my opinion, rather than pushing his own. I think, I said carefully, that the right succession plan depends on where Horizon is heading. If we continue expanding into new markets and technologies, someone with your strategic background makes sense. If we focus on refining our existing innovations, perhaps someone with more technical expertise would be better. Very diplomatic, he smiled. But I wasn't asking the CEO. I was asking Rebecca, the woman I love. How would you feel about working together so closely with all the complications that entails? The directness of the question and the casual declaration of love caught me off guard. Though our relationship had deepened over the past year, neither of us had rushed to label it, cautious of repeating past mistakes. I think, I replied, matching his honesty, that it would require very clear boundaries and expectations, professionally and personally. Agreed, he nodded. And if those could be established, if we could find a way to make it work without compromising either aspect? I considered the question seriously, weighing potential pitfalls against opportunities. Then I'd be open to discussing it, but no decisions until we've explored all the implications. Always the careful analyst, he teased gently. Someone in this relationship needs to be, I countered with a smile. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. For what it's worth, I think we could make it work. We're not the same people who struggled to balance these elements before. We've both learned, from success and from failure. We have, I agreed. But this would be uncharted territory for us. Isn't that what innovators do? He challenged softly. Chart new territory? 2 years to the day after Horizon Haven's grand opening, James proposed, not with a grand gesture or public declaration, but with a quiet conversation on the terrace of his home, overlooking the harbor that had become our shared sanctuary. I'm not asking because of succession plans or business advantages, he clarified as he offered a simple but elegant ring. I'm asking because these past 2 years have shown me what's possible when we're truly partners, equal, respectful, supportive of each other's strengths. No family pressure this time? I asked, only half joking. None, he assured me, though they've made their approval abundantly clear. Turns out saving the family business earns you a remarkable amount of goodwill. I laughed despite myself. Not exactly the most romantic basis for acceptance. But honest, he countered. And we've built everything on honesty this time around. No illusions, no unspoken expectations. I studied the ring, not a traditional diamond, but a laboratory-created gem set in recycled platinum, sustainable yet beautiful. So different from the family heirloom he'd first proposed with years ago. "I love you," he said simply when I remained silent. Not as James Donovan loving Rebecca Mitchell. Not as one corporate executive loving another. Just me loving you. With all your brilliance and determination and occasional stubbornness. Occasional? I raised an eyebrow, deflecting with humor while I processed the emotions swirling within me. Persistent, he amended with a smile. One of your many qualities I've come to appreciate even more the second time around. I looked from the ring to his face, open, honest, patient. No pressure, no manipulation, just a question asked and space given for a genuine answer. "We'd need a prenuptial agreement," I said practically, even as my heart raced. "For the company's sake." "Already assumed?" he nodded. "Complete separation of business assets and personal ones." "And I'm keeping my name," I continued. "Professionally and personally." "I'd expect nothing less," he agreed. "Rebecca Mitchell is a powerful brand in her own right. And if the board does move forward with succession planning, that's a separate discussion," he interrupted, gently. "This isn't about business, Rebecca. It's about us choosing each other, eyes wide open, knowing exactly who we are and what we want." The simplicity of it, the clarity, cut through my analytical defenses. This wasn't the fairy tale romance of our first engagement, based on attraction and optimism. This was something more grounded, more authentic, a choice made with full awareness of both possibilities and challenges. "Yes," I said finally, holding out my hand, with clear eyes and an open heart. The joy that spread across his face as he slipped the ring onto my finger was entirely genuine, untainted by triumph or relief. This wasn't a victory for either of us. It was a mutual decision to build something together, stronger than what either could create alone. Just like Horizon Haven itself. Our wedding, 6 months later, was nothing like the conflicted affair of our first marriage. No country club reception, no familial power struggles, no compromises that felt like surrender. Instead, we held an intimate ceremony in the central garden of Horizon Haven, surrounded by close friends and family who genuinely supported our relationship. Vivian, to her credit, respected our wishes for simplicity, though she couldn't resist gifting us a spectacular honeymoon at an eco-resort she had secretly invested in. "See, I'm learning," she'd whispered as she presented the envelope. The business press covered the event with predictable speculation about mergers and acquisitions, but the financial analysts recognized the truth, that Horizon Innovations and Donovan Properties had already established their partnership parameters, independent of personal relationships. The prenuptial agreement, voluntarily disclosed to shareholders, reinforced this separation of business and personal interests. "So," Maya asked at the reception, champagne in hand, "how does it feel to come full circle? From trophy wife to business savior to bride again?" "Not full circle," I corrected her, spiraling upward, same positions viewed from a higher perspective. She considered this, then nodded. "I like that. And what's the view like from up there?" I glanced across the garden to where James stood, chatting with Daniel, the two men who represented different aspects of my life now working together toward shared goals. Beyond them, the sustainable community we'd created thrived under the setting sun, visible proof that visions could become reality with sufficient determination. "The view," I told Maya with a genuine smile, "is exactly what I always imagined it could be." In the years that followed, Horizon Innovations expanded its influence globally, with our sustainable development model adapted for various climates and cultural contexts. The Mitchell method became industry standard, referenced in business, schools, and environmental programs alike. When I eventually did step back from daily operations to focus on innovation and strategic vision, the transition was smooth and thoughtful. Not a resignation, but an evolution. James did eventually become CEO, but only after serving in multiple roles throughout the company, earning the position through demonstrated capability rather than personal connection. Our professional and personal lives remained distinctly separate, yet harmoniously aligned, each enhancing rather than compromising the other. The Donovans, too, evolved, from traditional luxury developers resistant to change into champions of sustainable opulence. Richard eventually retired, handing leadership to Thomas while maintaining an emeritus role on the board. Vivian channeled her social influence into promoting sustainable living among her wealthy peers, becoming an unexpected ally in changing perceptions about luxury and responsibility. Olivia found her niche in digital storytelling, documenting the human impact of sustainable communities through compelling content that helped shift market demand. Her initial role at Horizon Haven led to a career transformation she hadn't anticipated, but clearly relished. As for me, the woman once dismissed as merely decorative, a trophy wife with a hobby, I found the ultimate validation not in proving others wrong, but in proving myself right. The vision I had championed when few would listen now shaped how people thought about homes, communities, and the relationship between luxury and sustainability. The trophy wife had become the visionary, the decorative accessory now the essential foundation. Not because I had changed fundamentally, but because circumstances had revealed what was always there beneath the surface: determination, intelligence, and an unwavering belief in possibility. Looking back, I could see that the Donovans' rejection had been, ironically, the catalyst for my greatest success. By forcing me to choose between their approval and my authentic self, they had inadvertently pushed me toward independence and innovation. The money they eventually needed to save their business was less significant than the vision they had initially dismissed. Standing on the balcony of our home overlooking the harbor, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, I felt James join me, his presence now a comfortable constant rather than a complicated question. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Just reflecting," I replied, leaning back against him, "on how the worst rejections sometimes lead to the best redirections." "Philosophical tonight," he noted, echoing my words from years before. "The view inspires it," I smiled, seeing how far we've come. Below us, the city lights began to twinkle as darkness fell. Among them, the sustainable developments we'd pioneered stood out: integrated solar arrays capturing the last rays of sun, efficient lighting systems activating in response to environmental conditions. Not just buildings, but living ecosystems, each one expanding the vision that had once been dismissed as impractical. "Do you ever wonder," James asked thoughtfully, "what would have happened if my family had accepted you from the beginning? If they had recognized your potential immediately?" I considered the question seriously. Horizon might have become a division of Donovan Properties rather than its own entity. Your family might have adopted some sustainability features without fundamentally changing their approach. We might have compromised the vision to maintain harmony. So their rejection was actually a gift, I finished his thought. Though it certainly didn't feel like one at the time. He turned me gently to face him, his expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry it took us losing each other to find our way back stronger." "I'm not," I said with sudden clarity. "The journey shaped us both, exactly as we needed to be shaped. We lost each other, yes, but we found ourselves in the process." The trophy wife label that had once felt so dismissive now seemed almost humorously inadequate, a superficial judgment that had completely missed the substance beneath. The Donovans had seen only what they expected to see, a pretty accessory for their son, rather than the visionary who would eventually transform their industry and save their legacy. But that blindness had set me free to build something authentic to prove my worth on my own terms, to create a future that aligned with my values rather than someone else's expectations. They needed my money to save their business, I mused. But what they really needed was my vision all along. And I needed to lose you to truly understand your worth, James added softly. Some lessons come at a high price. But they do. Come, I finished, echoing Richard's words from years before. That's what matters in the end. As night settled fully around us, the sustainable city glowed below, a testament to vision, perseverance, and the power of believing in possibility when others see only obstacles. The journey from dismissed trophy wife to industry transformer hadn't been easy or direct, but each step, even the painful ones, had been necessary to reach this vantage point. The woman the Donovans had once underestimated now shaped the future they lived in. Not for revenge or vindication, but because that had always been my purpose. Seeing possibilities others missed and bringing them to life through determination and innovation. That, I realized as James and I stood together overlooking the world we'd helped reshape, was the most satisfying victory of all. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.